guys.
Woo-hoo!
We're live.
What is up, everyone? Forget
Do it live.
Do it live. That's right. Welcome, misfits, to tonight's Call Me Skeptical.
Call us.
Ontological Argument for God?
What does that even mean?
I know, it sounds fancy, so it must be fancy.
Sounds like something Ontangelo came up with. The Ontological Argument for God.
Yes, it was just a role play. Tonight!
You be God, I be devil. Ha ha ha. Spank me, Amy.
Oh my. I always wonder how they know the devil was the bad guy and God was the good guy. I'm just saying the track record from everything we've been reading in our skeptic Bible studies.
Maybe the number of people killed by God versus killed by the devil who hasn't really made an appearance yet.
But James, you know when you were growing up and you genocided like a planet or two, it happens.
They had it coming.
They had it coming. They had it coming. Anyway, tonight, the ontological argument for God, where we look at a philosophical argument for a priori knowledge. So come join James W. and myself, Amy Newman, as we assume some fun. Woohoo! Welcome everyone out there on the intertubes and the chatosphere. If you have your vaccine or booster shot, now is the time to activate your 5G chip from your barcode.
It'll connect to the chemtrails, so if they haven't flown over your house recently, you might not be getting a signal, but don't worry, the Illuminati will... They'll get that taken care of right away.
All right, good. They're probably faster than Comcast or Verizon. Anyway.
They'll be taking over the world any minute now. Any minute now. Yeah. They've been planning it forever. Yeah.
Planning it forever. Kind of aiming the space lasers. But don't forget, if you're feeling fancy, to like, follow, or subscribe, and then hit that bell icon so that you can see our premieres or join our live streams like everyone out there. Hi!
Hey, guys.
Now, we are a skeptic channel, including the two schmucks you see before you.
We fit that description.
However, Call Me Skeptical is specifically looking for views that don't agree with our own. So if you fit the bill, then the link to join the show will eventually head into chat. Now, that's what she or he said. Now, we also love people who do agree with us, atheists, skeptics, and science-minded people. So feel free to call, or rather click in as well.
But the theists will get priority, yeah.
If you think the world is 6,000 years old, that evolution is a hoax, or that the world is flat. Wow. It's those damn fish now.
Come on in.
Nice. Well, then, OG. I was trying to think.
Amy's thinking about fish nets.
Oh, it's too busy
thinking about fish nets.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, then, OG Willikers, you should speak to us right away.
You've called the right place.
That's right, baby. That is after we get done our opening statements and our housekeeping, sponsored by our Patreons, which you can find at patreon.com/Amy Newman, including awesome Patreons like Pagans Seem to Trigger Any One of the Abrahamic Religions, K.O. Champ.
That's right, Spooky. I do not have a neck even anymore. I'm not a brain in a vat. I'm just a floating brain. Yeah.
You're just a brain in a vat? Is that what you're
in a
trying
room?
To tell us, James? In a room.
A brain
it's
in a
all
room.
Coming together. A brain in a room. That's kind of like a brain in a vat. A brain in a room. It actually sounds more comfy. A brain in a room. Just chilling.
Yeah, my old system took a crap ride, so I'm bumming it for right now. But don't worry about that. We'll get that going soon.
That's okay. He's that committed. And we're having fun. Also, sending love to us from the Atheist Roundtable. Woohoo! Tang Gang Yo. And
Tang
speaking
gang,
of Tang, are you looking for better conversations, better debates, and a better community?
Yeah. Better grilled cheese sandwich.
You better get your butt to the better event with tickets live on sale now. Tart.live.
Tart.live. One day you're gonna forget your like an egg or something in there, in that skillet there that you. Yeah.
Well, what I need to do is now I need to get like a stuffy egg so that I can make breakfast and probably stuffy bacon.
This is your brain on religion.
And yes, sending love to us. And also, as we level up in the skeptic community, Ian Davenport.
Ian, we already got our thumbs up on Facebook. Thank you, Ian.
That's right. Sending love to Ian as we do the entire streaming community. We are on YouTube. We are on Twitch. And we are on Facebook. What is up, everyone out there on the inner tubes and
maybe GodTube one day. GodTube. It is a website. It is a real.
Or Pornhub. Site. Whatever you're into. Whatever.
Well, aren't you already on that? Oh, never. Oh.
Dun, 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 dun. Only on good days. Anyway. Sending love also to, well, as we listen to ontological arguments, they make Grumpy and a lot in the skeptic community go, are you?
Yeah.
Because it's like, really? You just.
A lot of that during the Ken Hovind debate the other day. A lot of that.
Can I feel
a lot of that last night with the Matt Dillahunty debate, even more so if possible. That was a dumpster fire. That was bad.
Well, sometimes it gets a little bit spicy. A little bit spicy. But that's okay. I mean, we like the spicy.
Matt went easy. Matt was pretty calm by Matt's standards.
Oh, really? Yeah. It was Converse. He went off a little.
No, it was just. He just had no argument. It was just. Yeah.
Oh well, yeah. Well, I mean, spoiler alert for later, but there is slavery in the Bible. I don't know.
Lots of slavery.
Lots
over
of slavery.
And over again.
Ladies and gentlemen, if you wanted 2-3 scoops of buffet of slavery, get your Bible ready.
Yeah.
I don't know what the arguments are. It's the good slavery. Well, actually, they say even when they translate it, they retranslate it to servant in certain passages. They go hired servant and servant.
And
hired servant.
Bond servant, woman servant.
One, I think one gets paid and the other says, get the fuck back to work.
Yeah.
No money. No
money.
Anyway, no, it's
work 14 hours a day or I'll beat you. I mean, I can't beat you so hard you die right then, but if you die the next day, no big deal.
Exactly.
Because you're my property, right?
Look, James, it's what God said, and in the next life, it won't even matter if you think about it.
There you go. Right.
And we're sending love to Grumpy, and we're also sending love to Diana Smith, Princess of the One. Woo! And we're sending basically just hearts to anytime we bring up the Bible, and and we're talking about women, already get the short stick in that book.
But you didn't get the short stick, Amy.
Oh, baby, never. Moonlight wants to go out. Okay.
Here's the other one. This other sentient animal. You can't see him in this new camera, but here he is. He loves being on the show.
Hi, Gizmo. Yeah, this is a cat-friendly, carnivore-friendly. It doesn't matter if you're a dog, a cat. If you legitimately have a pet seal, I am okay with it. I didn't even know that Navy SEALs were allowed to be pets. No, they are. Anyway, sending love to Diana Smith, and also sending love to Pam Levenger. Woohoo!
Coming up, we're going to try and get that episode done next week. I know everybody's been waiting for it.
That's skeptics. Right. Because sometimes it's like the inverse, the sister show of this, where we're really reaching out to anybody that we can. We want more people with experience or expertise in the community to once again tell these schmucks what's going on in various subjects. Yeah. Woo! So sending love.
Thanks, Pat.
And also, it's funny because it's something that completely lacks in anything that we're going to be talking about tonight, which is where I swear they like it. Oh, baby. Is that you don't have empirical evidence. So, Dale Pastel and the rest of the skeptics, when we kind of dig into the meat of the any of the ontological arguments.
I asked for evidence. I got bad philosophy. On a lot of bad philosophy. And that's all I keep getting. Wow. I'm going to guess they don't have any evidence.
Funny how that works. Well, it says it on paper, though, so it is in paper.
A priori being.
A priori. That's right, baby. I got somewhere to put a posterior, but I think that may be something a bit different. Anyway, sending love to death. It is a necessary posterior.
Yeah. Is it maximally posterior?
It is a maximal posterior. It is not at all knowing posterior, but it is a maximally knowing posterior.
So it's not omniscient.
Think about it.
But it's all good. It's all good.
Yeah.
Maximally good.
I would say it's a maximally good posterior because we all gotta go, James. But for the most part, maximally. That's why we had to change from it away from an all-powerful posterior.
Praise God.
Praise God.
Praise God.
Anyway, thank you so much, Dale Pastel, and oh my lordy, existing on the internet. we could be asking it, what happens when people just don't trust anyone but, I don't know. I'm trying to think who they would trust. The mailman?
Flat Earth YouTube videos, maybe?
You can't trust anyone unless they gave it to you. Did you just accept it from someone else? You'd accept the data? Did you accept that from
Eric
the government?
Dubay, Mark Sargent. You could trust them.
You can trust that. Oh, and if you think about it, it could be just an ice wall, a giant ice wall, just like in Game of Thrones. And we're all on the wall. Oh, the wall. The ice wall.
RuneScape, like was mentioned in the debate.
RuneScape, that's right. Look, we mentioned RuneScape a decent amount in our Skeptic Bible study because they go into the wilderness of RuneScape often. Look, you got a PvP sometimes. Sometimes it just feels good. You get it's exhilarating. You get that thrill. Well, anyway,
that's the wilderness of sin. But thank you, Dave.
That is also a good.
Nice vacation
Thank you
spot.
so much, Dave Gar. A nice vacation spot next to where we sell timeshares of the damned. It's fantastic. If you ever love people screaming constantly forever, it's for you.
Amy doesn't have ice walls, but she does have something 15-foot long made of ice.
15 foot, that's right. And it's actually on my seminar number 5. I have a 15-foot rail. Buy the whole set. But also, the head hyena of the pack. As we were just talking about carnivorars. Scott Duke.
Speak of the devil. Scott Duke, yeah. Dave Guard, Scott Duke, the daytime shift.
And it pisses me off, as always, because not all theists, not all creationists, but I find creationism loves to breed this mindset of just a hierarchy. They just I'm here, the other animal down there, the ant, stompa. It's like, okay,
Christians are up here. Everybody else is over there.
Well, that's another thing that I dislike about religion in general is just the lovely in-group and out-group. I try to be as big a tent as possible, if you know what I mean.
To divide people, yes, yeah.
It is. It's just another day. Exactly. It is just another way to divide people, and it divides people rapidly. Because it's not something that we're born with. It's ideas. And so it changes because we're constantly thinking and having new ideas and having interpretations and reinterpretations, and it will never end. And so the biggest joke to me is the purity, or whatever you want to call it, from being a non-believer in just the saying I don't know. That clean I don't know just clears so much bullshit. It just goes
right.
You don't know something, and you don't seem to accept a lot of bullshit, and I don't know.
Kind of end up asking for evidence.
Kind of asking for evidence. Dale, Scott, we're all just Dave Gar and Rangers! A thespian skull, as God sometimes means to say, thy will obey me, or else I'm going to kind of thy genocide everyone.
Strip, take thy clothes off. I am about to kill you. Or tapping on the rock twice.
Eat some quail. I imagine, like, Yahweh gets more evil the more I read about him. I know Christians, Jews, you're probably thinking I'm so biased, but man.
You just imagine God just standing there stuffing that quail down their throats.
Exactly. That
watching them detonate from the quail and just laughing about it.
Like that story specifically, even though, well, I'd say it's a passage, but so is like the Tower of Babylon. It's not very long either. But that is some Saw stuff. Like that is him setting up, giving people what they want and waiting for them to bite into it and being like, and they died.
Setting it up by first not providing them with enough food, making them hungry, and then getting pissed off at them when they whine about it.
And once again, it sounds like a tip your head fedora. It's in the Bible. In the Bible.
It's in there. It's in there. Prego. It's in there.
Prego, prego. And last, but certainly not least, sending love to Rachel Hunt. And we were just talking about this. The spoiler alert. Unless you're having some kink on, I don't really know what the good slavery is. I'm trying to figure out.
Lighter beating.
Oh, the lighter beating. Oh, you beat them and then they get up and they can walk.
Yeah.
That's what it says.
Like Jesus said in the New Testament, look, if a servant knows what his master wants him to do and he doesn't do it, then that servant gets severe beating. He gets beaten to almost death. But if he didn't know what his master wanted him to do, if he didn't know, I mean, he does still get beat. You don't get a pass because you didn't know. You still get a beat, but you get a milder beating. You don't get beaten as bad as the other guy. So he can just walk that beating off, whereas the other one he won't be walking for a while.
That's right. Just a lighter beating.
Yeah.
And it's your property, so I mean,
yeah. If you're mad and you beat him so hard he can't work for a few days, that's your loss, right?
Did they consent or say that they could be owned, or did they say, were they like, hey, it's the fun program? No, it was kind of like, oh, take from the heathens around you, from the nations around you.
But did God consent to you consenting to reading your consent page out of the Bible? It's not implied consent or other forms of non-consenting consent.
Wait. All right. There we go.
Non-consensual consenting. Yeah.
Non-consensual. That's right. Non-consensual consenting. Well, if you convert them, you're kind of doing the Lord's work.
Right. I mean, hey, what is this life? I mean, hey, this life is gonna suck, but your eternity will be great.
In heaven.
You will say to the people that sold you into slavery, thank you so much for doing that, because all the people that weren't sold into slavery are now burning in hell forever because
That's right. Could be burning.
Right.
Roasting and toasting.
Yeah.
And all right. Before we switch into callers, I want to give a final thank you to all of our Patreons.
Thank you, guys.
And da-da-da-da, da-da-da-da.
Oops.
The Ontological Argument for God. With ontology being the branch of philosophy that studies concepts such as existence, being, becoming, and reality. Or really, a fancy way of saying we need to define our God into reality. Speaking of which, the definition is important because users of this argument have one they love. If we define God as the greatest thing that we can conjure up in our minds, the only thing that could possibly be greater than him would be the real version. Which clearly sounds like wish fulfillment on steroids. Oh. If I can think of the greatest Deadpool, then the greater Deadpool would be the real version. Yes! I knew it! Now, many of these type of arguments implore the omnis. Our Sky BFF is all-powerful, all-knowing, and morally perfect. Hot. However, flaws leaked like Swiss cheese. So now they use Maxim for everything. As if I want a maximum set of all-powerful fries. Oh, they are all-powerful. The notion of necessary also came later, as theologians and philosophers argued. God suddenly needed to be in every possible world. Finally, a Yahweh multiverse. A Yahwehverse. Even though this too was filled with holes. God, after all, could God create a burrito so spicy even he couldn't eat it? And would he put that shit on everything? That's before we deal with time travel and knowing the past, present, and future. Ontological arguments work a lot from the premise of real and possible worlds, moving in and out of unicorns and supposedly into the command of our lives via philosophy. Yes, it's making sense. So, let's get into one of the arguments. This is 5 premises and a conclusion doozy. I'm going to say something after premise 1, but then I'll just read the rest. Premise 1. It's possible that a maximally great being exists. Actually, impossibility and possibility need to be demonstrated. So I would need to grant you God to move forward, which I will for the lovely viewers like you. Premise 2. A maximally great being exists in some possible world. Premise 3. If a maximally great being exists in some possible world, then it exists in every possible world. Jump, jump, jump. If a maximally great being exists in every possible world, well, then it exists in the actual world. Premise 5. A maximally great being exists in the actual world. Like, really, like, it's like my actual boyfriend in like Canada. Conclusion, therefore, a maximally great being exists.
Randolph Richardson in Canada.
That's right. Well, there you have it, folks. I'd like to point out that a being is not a god. However, this is one of their maze-like premises set up to bring a deity to life. I'd like to end with a final note from Marvel to help illustrate this can be done in any canon. Wanda Maximoff is what is called a nexus being. She exists, Scarlet Witch, in all possible timelines, meaning that she cannot not be. Does that sound like anyone to you? Though there are a few like her, at least in the Marvel-verse. Not sure about the Yahweh-verse or here, but I'm going to need some premises and a conclusion to march their butt into a lab, because it's great to philosophize, but everything else Stan Lee does better. Thank you. And all right, James, how are you tonight? And are you ready to assume some fun?
I guess. I don't know how I'm supposed to go after that. You pretty much covered everything. Let me try and fuck with this camera a little bit. Okay, is that better? Yeah, great. So the ontological argument, I'd like to say, it's kind of one of like the nasty arguments, you know? Like, think back in the day, for those of you who watched baseball, like Greg Maddux had just a nasty changeup, or Mariano Rivera just had a nasty cutter that just kind of, it infuriated batters because it was just so good that it just, you can't hate the game, but it really is a pain in the ass to deal with, and that's because it tries to dive so deep into philosophy and throw out all these different terms, and like Amy said, to try to define God into existence. And as with all these types of proof, there are problems at each and every level. Each and every step of the way is an assumption, and you're kind of going along the path, but there's problems at each and every step of the way. Like, right off the bat, just being a moral relativist right now, I would say, how can there be a maximally good being? Or, well, they'll say he's all good, some of them, but good or bad is subjective. That's based on an opinion. And we got into this a little bit the other day with Ken Hovind's debate, which, go figure, it was a debate on the Big Bang. How did he get into morality? But Ken Hovind got into the idea that, well, if there's no God, then who decides what's right and wrong? The guy with the biggest stick? It's like, no. Actually, that's exactly what religion does. You're just saying because God has the biggest stick imaginable, hell, so therefore, whatever he says is right or wrong just is, because he can still send you to hell. So you better just do what he says, even if you think he's an idiot, which he is. But that's not how humans do right or wrong. We do do right and wrong by consensus, because it doesn't matter how big your stick is, even if it's 15 foot long, you still can't defeat 20 or 30 people. So we do right and wrong by consensus. But anyway, that's just one problem, the maximally goodness along the way. So at each and every step along the way, you've got problems come up. And this argument, it kind of plays with the concept of, well, if the universe is infinite, then there's only so many arrangements of that matter can be in. So if you go far enough, eventually anything that can exist will exist by definition. So the universe is infinite, and you eventually keep going far enough, you'll eventually find a three-headed purple pink unicorn, because it just has to be out there somewhere. But they're defining their God as a being that exists, but I don't think their concept of a God, I don't think their definition of a God is even logical or coherent. It's like the idea of a married bachelor. You could keep going further and further, and you'll never find a married bachelor, because that's just a logical impossibility. It doesn't work. It doesn't make sense. And that's what they're kind of trying to do, is to shoehorn God into reality by saying, well, he's got to be out there somewhere. And if he's in one possible world, he's got to be in all possible worlds, because philosophy says so. And that's the thing with philosophy. It could do a lot for us. I mean, it's gotten us from the Stone Age to today. Philosophy put us on the moon. Philosophy makes electronic. Actually, no. Philosophy doesn't do really any of that. Not that it doesn't have certain applications, not that it doesn't help people to think, and not that it didn't inspire people to do great things. But even Tom Jump, who is a very well-studied philosopher, from my perspective anyway, even he'll admit you can't just use philosophy. You have to still tie your ideas to something tangible in the real world. And this argument, this ontological argument, is just a perfect example of philosophy run amok. It's just philosophy gone to the nth degree, ad absurdum. It's not tied to reality, and you would only use an argument like this if that's all you had. If you had nothing better to present, you had nothing real, nothing tangible, you just have absolutely nothing, then the only thing you can do is come up with some philosophical nonsense, put it on paper, and demand people refute it. And that's what we're here to do. So come on in and tell us why you think this argument is so amazing to you. Thank you both. Praise Jeebus.
Mm-hmm. Thank you so very much, James. And all right, we are about to switch into callers, in which we will be taking one call at a time. We are looking for those with viewpoints different than our own. In fact, we'll give priority to those who do. However, we're also open to views who do agree with us. Hey, and have something to just say on the subject. Afterwards, we will be heading to the Discord for some chatting with the community, the link of which is in the description below, and the link to join us in live stream is heading into chat. So with that, we're about to switch into our first call. But how are you? How are you tonight, James? And what do you think about all this? The funny thing is it sounds so technical. And then once I have dwelled, I don't know, a knee deep into this, it almost seems rather silly. Like they are defining things. It's like, it sounds cool that you think you have something. But if this was a scientific paper, you would need to be like, okay, now prove. You need to go prove all this. You need to come up with a test. How are you wrong?
And that's what
how
they
would
don't
you know
have.
if you were wrong?
Yeah, like Jason, they're not really very persuasive. They would only persuade somebody if you were absolutely desperate, looking for something, anything to hang your belief on. Then you might gravitate towards something like this. because you have just nothing else to hang your hat on. There's nothing else there. When we look out in the natural world, we see no evidence, no indication of a God. All we see is natural events taking place naturally through natural means and from natural causes. We've never seen anything else. You want to postulate that, well, maybe somewhere, some way, there is something else. Okay, fine. Provide evidence for it.
Another reason why I don't like arguments like this is this seems to be, I hate to use gateway, but this is often used as an argument to entice non-believers and skeptics. These are theologians at least saying, hey, we're doing philosophy,
Right.
and we're trying to bring the non-believers on board from an intellectual grounds, because we're not going to bring them on board from just saying I saw 3
Evidential
waterfalls.
grounds. Right.
So,
Well, I mean, it kind of resembles like the cosmological argument, which sounds technical, but like with this one, if you examine each premise, each assumption on its own, a lot of the conclusions they're drawing just do not follow. They're just not justified in where they're going. But once they get you about halfway down that rabbit hole, once you start agreeing with them and going along with their assumptions, strap yourself in, because you might be on for a wild ride. But it's a wild ride of bullshit. It's not a real ride anywhere.
the other thing that I have found
Boy.
is that what they will do, and I just see Bubble joined us, so we'll go to our first caller in a second.
How did I guess
Hey.
Bubble would be on here?
But what they do is, this is what that guy who would always say something and then ask, what do you think of, I can't even do it. What do you think of that? Can you define that? It puts it on the reverse. They kind of flip this and they will say, well, how can you even have things or logic without a necessary being? And it's like, you are supposed to be proving a necessary being. You cannot just assume that. And we got Bubble and we got Redacted. I like Redacted, my new BFF. And all right, we are going into callers. As if you just joined us, we are calling me skeptical.
Drop your cock and grab your sock.
That's right, baby. The ontological argument for the existence of God.
The other bullshit argument. Yeah.
The other. What is up, Bubble?
Welcome back, Bubble.
Hey, what's happening? You hear me?
We can.
We hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah. Hey.
Woohoo! Well, we are talking ontological arguments for the existence of God.
Well,
how are you doing? What do you think?
I'm good, but I've given you all the evidence, undeniable evidence, but you keep rejecting it. So I'm wondering, I'm getting to the point you guys don't want evidence. So what is it that you want?
I mean, we haven't been presented with any good evidence, I would say. We have had claims and baseless assertions, but no evidence, I would say.
I have provided undeniable evidence.
And yet we deny it. That
houses,
is the funny thing.
Ghost stories, Ouija boards.
No,
gnomes,
not that.
Oh, not the gnomes of the Ouija boards. Okay.
The genetic argument. That is undeniable.
The genetic argument.
The evolution argument.
The evolution argument. Evolution is a fact. So with that fact on board.
No, it is not a fact, because we know mutations are deleterious. And that is a fact.
The fact that you don't understand how it works is not a problem.
Do you accept that mutations are deleterious? Yes or no? Is this a fact? Yes or no?
They can be.
I do not know.
No, are they nearly deleterious? Yes or no?
I do not know.
They are. That's a fact. And what does
They
what
could
this
be.
what no
They
they
don't
are.
have to be.
They are. It's not a matter of they have to be or they could be. They are. And this fact alone implies
They are,
yes,
except when they aren't. Except when they aren't. That's the only caveat
no
there.
keyword nearly. That means nearly all of them are deleterious. This means no organism could ever gain information.
Yet it happens. So
No,
the
it has
fact that it
never happened.
happens,
It
the
has
fact that
never
it
happened.
happens means there's a problem in your reasoning there. You might not be able to understand how it happens, but we have the evidence that it does. So therefore,
It has never happened, and the evidence is saying it could never happen because mutations, the foundation of your evolutionary theory, which is based on mutations, are deleterious. So are you going to accept the fact that mutations are deleterious, yes or no?
well, I mean, you say mutations. Like, are you an exact copy of either of your parents? No, right?
It would not matter. Are mutations deleterious?
Well, no,
yes?
no. But there's mutations in those genes that make
Yes.
you a different person. Yet you're alive. You're able to eat and live and do all the things you need to do. So, what type of deleterious mutations have made it impossible for you to live?
That mutations are deleterious.
No, they're not.
Yes,
Wait,
they
are
are.
you? Can I stop this? Are you saying because some mutations are bad that all mutations must be bad and therefore evolution isn't true?
Nearly all mutations are deleterious.
Okay.
See,
Bubbles.
you're looking at at where we live today. So today, organisms are highly evolved to live in their environment. So
Look,
after millions of years of evolution, they are highly evolved. So yeah, any change now is probably going to be deleterious because they've already adapted so well to their environment that any deviation from that, it's like, why don't alligators change? Well, it's because they're highly suited for living in swamps.
Now
They
you're
do
giving
it
the
very
Christian
well.
argument. You're giving the Christian
no,
argument. Yes,
no,
you
no,
are.
no.
You're giving the Christian argument.
I'm
You
saying
do know
that
how natural selection works, though, right?
Natural selection, you don't understand what natural selection can do and cannot do. Natural selection cannot stop mutations from being deleterious.
The environment. Yeah, but the good mutations live on and get passed on to other genes.
And so do the deleterious, and they're mainly deleterious.
That is the point.
They do get passed on.
You're saying that the bad genes, the harmful genes, get passed on. That's most of the genes get passed on from harmful genes.
No, I'm saying mutations get passed on, and most mutations are deleterious.
Okay,
natural selection filters those out. Go ahead.
No, it doesn't. You are completely misunderstanding what natural selection can and cannot do. Natural selection does not stop mutations.
No, natural selection selects mutations. In fact, the definition,
it does not.
I will say this is the definition of evolution: is that genes randomly mutate and the environment naturally selects them.
No, evolution means that all these mutations will accumulate into a positive gain of information. That's what evolution.
They can.
No, that's what it is. That's what evolution means. Not the losing of information.
Well, that's how we got to where we are today.
Then you are. It can't be because mutations are deleterious.
So we're going to start asking logistics in the opposite direction. How do you think a fish came to be?
A fish was created
by
a creator.
How?
Who the heck knows? Because we can't even create life. Okay, look, if you think human life is so easy, how about you make a fish out of nothing?
I don't believe the concept of nothing exists. Would you be able to give me an example of a nothing?
Okay, just take whatever elements are found in a fish and make a fish yourself. See how hard it is.
Do you believe a fish is made out of nothing?
No, but they're made out of elements, right? You can find these elements in nature.
Sure.
So take those elements in nature.
Hey, we're getting closer to nature. Now we're getting somewhere.
So take those elements found in nature and make a fish.
Well, here's the thing. We've only been trying that for a few years.
Because you can't breathe life.
Hey, wait. I'm going to just give me a chance. Let's see if I can get to a fish. We have a Big Bang where we have hydrogen, helium, and a little bit of lithium. It goes out, and then the hydrogen collects into the first stars. The first stars turn on, giving light to the universe. They live, they die. Some of them supernova. They spread their guts out to the universe, into which we create most of the heavier elements in those supernova explosions. Thank you, star generation 1. And then what happens is these solar systems begin to coalesce, and around some of this solar system there's actually a band around these second generation stars. It would be like Mars, I think, Earth, maybe even Venus. There's a certain band that is allowable on this rocky carbon ball. We get a lot of liquid water. And so now we have all this carbon and we have this liquid water. And the funny thing about carbon, as John Stewart says, water, is it's the slut of the periodic table. And it makes more chemical combinations than any other element combo out there. And so it starts reacting because it has liquid water in a place around the sun, which is kind of rare. And so chemical reactions are able to happen because it's not freezing, it's not burning. And so you get these single-celled kind of somewhere, I think, like a protovirus, something that's just copying and trying to survive. And eventually you get something that gets like a membrane and can live and is like something like the first bacteria. And you start to get these different bacterias, and you do that for billions of years. In fact, that's why I don't think if there's one reason why the aliens may have trouble visiting us, it's because it takes a really long time to get multi-celled organisms. Very possible, though. It took us billions of years. We got there. Billions of years go by. A multicellular event happens. Almost there. We're almost where plants are just sitting there. They're gathering sun, and the fungi are just injecting. They're like, oh shit, the plants are gathering, photosynthesizing. We better do something too. And so they start spilling their guts onto things, and we started doing something else. We became these little living creatures. And we move around, and we're little conscious creatures, and we got these little fishies from the multicellular organisms. And so now, hi.
Well, that's a fairy tale. It's no different than a flat earther telling me their theory. That's all you're telling me.
Right.
So I've given you this evidence, undeniable evidence that we were created.
It's not evidence,
it is evidence.
It's the fact that you don't understand evolution.
No, you don't understand mutations.
So are you familiar with the birds, the cormorant? You know what a cormorant is? There's about 40 species of cormorant birds. You know,
I know.
They're birds.
I know Darwin's finches. We can talk.
They're not Darwin. This is not Darwin's finches. There are 40 species of cormorant, and there's one species called the flightless cormorant that only lives on one island. Do you think the creator decided that, okay, I'm just going to make this one species of cormorant, and I'm going to give them wings, but I don't think they need to fly, so they're not going to be able to fly with those wings. They're just going to have them. You think that was intelligent design for the wings of the flightless cormorant that don't allow it to fly?
No,
the bird live?
No, that's just behavioral. Whatever behavioral. Yes, you can. Okay, there's this big umbrella of adaptation. Within adaptation, you have either biological adaptation, behavioral adaptation, etc. We are talking within the umbrella of biological adaptation, which diverts into evolution or devolution. And you are proposing this evolution, which is false because mutations are deleterious. Nearly all mutations are deleterious.
Well, can I ask you let's ask a different line of question. Why do you think that evolution is taught like a fact in middle school and high school?
I think it's because the school system is very politicized now, and it's no longer about facts. Like, for example, I asked you again, I presented you this evidence. You're denying this evidence. You don't want evidence. No, it's undeniable evidence. You think
you have disproved all the field of biology. They're all dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. You, Bubble, on YouTube have just debunked all of modern biology for all the things they've been doing for the past 150 years. They're all dumb. They don't know what they're talking about. Is that what you're basically saying?
No, other scientists who do know what they're talking about have debunked Darwin. It's time to let go of Darwin.
What percentage of biologists do you think accept Darwin's theory? Like 99.9%?
Only the ones who wish to remain politically dogmatic.
Who wish to remain connected with reality.
Titan wants to know, were you homeschooled?
No, I went to the public school system, and it's horrible. It's all propaganda.
Well, there you go.
Can I ask I just want to do a one check. I just want to do a one check.
All right, go ahead.
And it's just so we could possibly come together. And I will say the link is in there if you would like to join us and talk about the ontological argument. It is the theme. We'll take any views that disagree for our own, but the theme is the ontological argument tonight.
I would just say that the reason that the flightless cormorants evolved is because when a bird had a mutation that did not allow it to fly, guess what? It stayed on the island.
That's devolution.
It stayed on the island, right? Because it couldn't fly away. It doesn't matter what you want to call it, okay?
Well,
so the birds that could fly flew away. It doesn't matter how you want to mischaracterize it.
No, you're the one trying to mischaracterize it.
Is that okay? So when fish get stuck in underground caves where there's no light, okay, all fish that you see in the ocean have eyes, correct?
Yeah, they go blind. This happens.
So these fish, they lose their eyes through evolution, but it's not devolution.
It's devolution
because in their environment, the eye is a hindrance to them because they can't see with it anyway.
That is,
and all it can do is get infected.
That's devolving. That is not evolving.
Look at the blind mole rat. He's got a pair of functioning eyes with a flap of skin in front of it. That's not losing information. That's gaining a flap of skin to cover his eyes so they don't get infected because he's not using them anyway under the ground. Go ahead.
No, that's how they were.
And so we're at like 13 minutes. We'll go for 7 minutes. We'll go for an even 20 bubbles, and then we got Jason backstage who I think wants to talk. But once again, theist, we are prioritizing you. Come on, come all. That's what she or he said.
Too late.
We're just looking for those ontological arguments. If you believe, or if you are a theist and you think that ontological arguments are silly, because that's what I've been learning after really looking into it. But I will say, Bubbles, let me give you an example of just clear. You are a buggy, and you are walking up a tree stalk, and both of your you have a family that splits, and one set is a set of green bugs, and one set is a set of blue bugs. They both have mutations for their coloring. They both reach the top of the trees. Who do you think is going to be naturally selected at those green tree leaves at the top?
You're misunderstanding what natural selection can and cannot do. Natural selection.
That's an assertion, but you have to back that up.
Yes, I can. Because, you can have like one of these buggies lose a genome and like change their color. That's still devolution, first of all. But even despite that, you're not going to stop mutations from happening. And that's the point. Mutations are always happening, and they're nearly deleterious.
But we don't believe in de-evolution, and so
we don't want to call it devolution. That's all. Look,
because mutations always happen. That's why
because there's not a goal. The only goal is to live. Like they don't like animals.
That's
why I always make fun of people who make chromosomes debates to me in other subjects, because no one looks at their genes and goes, "What should I do today? TAGG, DAGG." It's like, no.
Right.
your genes are expressed in your DNA and then your organs, and then you at a higher level, and then the environment just is implying pressures on you. And that's all it is. That's all it is, Bubble.
The environment isn't going to make you evolve. You will adapt to the environment, but there will be no evolution.
Called adapt, but after successive generations of adapting,
mutations will happen,
affects the genetic.
which will lead to devolution. Devolution. Let's get it right.
Okay. Do you have anything else aside from your obstinate refusal to understand evolution?
No, you don't.
Anything else?
Mutations.
Anything else? Anything else?
Yes. You guys don't understand mutations, first of all. But it's clear that you guys don't want evidence. So what is it that you want? No, you don't. So what is it that you want? What is it that you want to prove this God?
I would like, honestly, if you're just asking, what do I personally want? I want God to come down here and start talking with me. I want them to do shit. I want God to be put in the lab. And so we can empirically, whether they're a super person, we can put whatever label they are. I mean, that's what I want. Whether there is that type of evidence out here, I have no idea. But we're just talking, what do I want? Yeah, so he's all powerful and all.
So you just want to see God, right?
It helps. I would say personal relationships, it's like a thing. They have to exist. That's like my one thing.
Okay, so you want to see God, the God. You want to see him.
Is there a the God? I want to put sunglasses on. I want to see the God.
Well, we can see that. That's akin to asking, "I want to see a ghost." Even more than asking, "I want to see a ghost."
Is that a bad question?
You have seen ghosts, so I mean,
it's an experiment. You just don't want to try it.
Wait, what experiment? Is the experiment a Ouija board? Because I'm open to Ouija boards because they don't believe they're real. I find them kind of funny, even though I guess they are kind of selling superstition. No, you told us they're my funny thing of that is you said they were only the moderate accurate device. You were like, there's something powerful than Ouija boards.
It's not powerful. It's more deductive.
So what's that?
But was the tool a Ouija board?
No, it was flashlights. They tend to work with flashlights. Yeah.
Wait a second. Okay, hold on.
Flashlights, not flashlights. Get your mind a little better.
Okay, and then second off, okay, you're right. But why flashlights? What you just said it was a test that I was not going to do.
Well, you keep asking for evidence, and we keep giving you evidence, and you keep rejecting all this evidence.
First of all, we as two people.
All this evidence.
But
well, I'm not the only theist. I mean, you have people like Neff.
That's true. Sure. Well, we did have
evidence
once.
From people like those is not much better than what you're presenting, but it's yeah.
And I wants to
get Jason in a minute.
All right. Well, I mean, maybe we can do this again later. Maybe Halloween we could talk more about ghosts and all that.
Yeah, we probably should have like a poltergeist episode.
All right. Well, I'll let the next guy come in. I'll see you guys later.
Okay. And I know it gets spicy, Bubble, but we always appreciate you coming on.
Thank you, Bubble.
I like the spice.
Praise Jeebus.
And all right, we're about to bring Jason in.
Praise whatever God Bubble believes in.
It's hard to map him because you wouldn't think he's a creationist, and I just map the evolution stuff of creationists. That, like, if you're going to be a pantheist, if you're going to be anything that's not an Abrahamic religion, please just accept the science. Big Bang, evolution, round Earth. That's what I wanted to ask him. I was like, I wanted to have a mind clearing moment. I wanted to make sure that he was on Team Round Earth.
I think he is because he did could say our reasoning is like a flat earther. Our
Well, that's true. So
science
does that mean
based
he
evolution.
doesn't, or he does?
He says he's not a pantheist. Yeah, I don't know.
He's like a pantheist, I think. Pantheist, yeah.
Pantheist, the old airline. Oh, big screen bird's gonna get him.
Sounds good. I'm sending the link back into chat, and we are switching to Jason Torn. We are talking ontological arguments for the existence of God.
Yeah,
what
Pat
is
just
up,
proved
Jason?
God to himself in chat.
Oh my God, I couldn't handle that bubble guy.
What
the hell was that?
He comes in and shares some interesting things from time to time.
I mean, he was so latched on to. First of all, he didn't even talk about your topic, which is these ontological arguments and deleterious mutations. We know deleterious mutations occur. We know there are a lot of them. They're not all the mutations. There are neutral mutations and beneficial mutations. And by the way, you could have a deleterious mutation and the environment could change and it becomes a beneficial mutation.
Right.
So
could be not that deleterious after all.
Yeah, and like the one example I was thinking of is like you could consider like a question is sickle cell anemia's point mutation, is that deleterious? Because we see it as a deleterious mutation, but actually is beneficial for individuals in Africa and to address the topics of the issue of malaria. That's one of the beneficial outcomes of sickle cell anemia.
Less likely to be infected with malaria.
Correct.
But it does cause other problems.
Correct. So it's not so simple as to say there's a bunch of, like, most mutations are deleterious, therefore evolution is not occurring. That doesn't even make any sense. So if you had anybody on here that had any biological background, they would be like that. You just don't know what you're talking about. That subject.
We've done a whole subject on the guy who created the topic of de-evolution, and it is a cell. It was created to just attack evolution,
obfuscate, muddy the waters, confuse people. Not a serious.
We heart you, Sal, but Sal is a follower of that. So if you want to come on one time, you're welcome to come on here. But Jason, we are talking ontological arguments for the existence of God. I have found these in many Catholic, Islamic, and pre-sup circles. It's the hot thing, and I feel like it's important that we detangle some of these because it demystify it to a lot of the skeptics. Because when I don't know how you guys, but it sounded very technical, and then I had to listen to some of these a few times to go, really? That's what because it seems like they're just defining.
Correct.
It sounds like wish fulfillment. Like, wow, you get all possible worlds everywhere. Like, you just brought Superman to life.
I mean, if you research ontological arguments, that there are a lot of ontological arguments, and there's a large contingency of individuals that think ontological arguments are inherently flawed, that there are flawed aspects. And you mentioned like definitional flaws, like the ontological arguments start off with like a maximally great God has these properties, or a God like comparing the God that you imagine with the God in the real world. Like it all starts with like these definitions, that the definitions have to be true in order to proceed, but you're making these huge assumptions on that definition. So that's like a major problem with ontological arguments, is the definitional problem. So I'm glad you talked about that, Amy.
You have to accept God as basically a ticket into the argument. It's to a lot of them, it is, you have to say, it is even possible. Just say it's possible. Just grant me possibility. Yeah. And then from
their God, they shoehorn in their idea, their concept of God.
I mean, if you think about an ontological argument, one of the core problems with it is circularity. Is that you start off with the assumption that there is that you're trying to you're defining a maximally great or a God in the very initial proposition in order to prove that God. So it creates this circularity aspect. And so that's always a problem with these. Another one is like there's a conceptual argument problem with them of how you're conceiving the certain components of the argument. There's a bunch of flaws with these. If you go into like the Stanford Encyclopedia,
each premise could have been. I basically made a promise to myself, which was I could have probably went through each of those things and made my thing like 20 fucking minutes. But because each one is a little bit loaded. Each one is like I could feel the jump. Like the jump from like, wow, you went from this was $1 and now it's $100 and now we're at infinity and your wallet's empty. It's amazing how that works. The other thing
use it to prove
to bounce of what Jason said is that there was a guy who came on here once. I wanted to get him on here other times, but he's I call him I give good nickname, the definition guy, which is he'd be like the Lord of God is the maximally empowered being. What do you feel about that definition?
What's your response?
What's
your
response?
How can you refute the definition? How can you refute the definition?
And the great thing about that guy, his tactic is to say premises which we would normally never accept. And you say, what's your response? Which is basically saying, prove me wrong.
Demands you refute his definition, but you can't refute a definition. It's not a... I mean, couldn't you use this argument to prove not just one God, but a pantheon of gods, right? Couldn't you conceive of an infinite number of infinite gods?
I mean, it's a theistic argument because you're not making any assumptions as to which God. You're just saying like what I was saying about the conceptual aspects, like conceive of and believe in, like these terms are like loaded terms, but it's like conceive of a God. You're not saying like the Islamic God or the Christian God or the whatever. That's a whole other problem. You're just trying to. Like these arguments have been around for a long time, and so there's certainly value in them because philosophers have used these arguments. Essentially, they're using these positions of belief in an initial maximally great God, and then constructing a propositional argument to logically try to prove that that's possible.
They're trying.
I just find those to be not very compelling at all.
Not very convincing.
No. And actually, I would think like the cosmological arguments are, to me, they seem like, I don't think any of them are any good, but I think that those are more compelling than ontological
coherent,
arguments.
At least.
Yeah. I don't think like folks like, I wonder if does William Lane Craig have a ontological argument position? He has a cosmological argument. I wonder if he considers.
He dabbles in it. He dabbles in it. I don't think it's his main thing, though.
Yeah,
I think I've seen him put a video out about it, but
not his main bread and butter. But I think you're right. I think I've seen him be
he's got some material
or have a position that was pro ontological argument.
Oh, really? Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, big surprise.
It's not his main shtick. Not his
main shtick, but it could be an appetizer if he's hungry.
Yeah, I mean, what would be nice is if like somebody had a particular ontological argument. Like I'm speaking to the chat. If like there's somebody that has an ontological argument, like their preferential ontological argument that they want to propose and come on and walk through the propositions, like Bubble came on, I'm like, form up, like, okay, you want to say like Bubble's argument is like evolution isn't possible because of deleterious mutations, therefore God. Okay, if you want to make that argument, put it in a propositional into some type of modal logic argument. If you think you can do it.
Premises and a conclusion.
He can't do that, because this is like Otangelo's argument, because he's like, I can't conceive of a possibility that evolution could work. You haven't explained how it could work, therefore God. I'm like, hey, just because we don't know everything about evolution and abiogenesis doesn't mean that God exists. It's not proof of your God.
We'll never
Well, I
know
always find
everything about anything.
He's
There's
the
always going to
second
be
person.
stuff we don't know.
Exactly. Sometimes the more we learn, that just opens up more questions about
Every
newer
answer
subjects. Yeah.
Opens up more.
Absolutely. Yeah. Just because you got, like, he's oftentimes like, how is that even possible? I mean, you don't know that it's impossible. It might be highly unlikely. Same thing like with Bubble saying, like, okay, there's many deleterious mutations. When those people who have, species that have deleterious mutations, those members of that species, they get weeded out. The beneficial mutations persist. Sometimes deleterious mutations become beneficial based on a change of environment, but there are beneficial mutations. There may be a small number, but there are some. And so it's like saying, prove to me that there are 0 beneficial mutations.
And there's
None,
a lot of
ever.
Well, it's like
that have no
humans.
effect one way or the other, right?
Like web feet, web hands. You could say that it has no effect, but suddenly we live in a water world, and then that mutation slowly just gets selected because everyone is swimming more.
Better, yeah.
And
I mean,
my thing with evolution, because it's the second I find it funny. I'm sending love to you, Bubbles, out there, still sending hearts. I find it funny and a little odd when people put evolution up against God and creation, because to me, evolution is so easy to understand. Look, I'm a schmuck. I feel like I could make picture books myself of the subject, and I am not an expert.
The concept of evolution isn't hard. The mechanics are a little more complicated, but
and they always want detailed logistics of things that people. There's lots of there's almost too much to give. We can give papers and books and stuff, but if I ever want logistics for like how God made something, you get God works in mysterious ways, or we don't know. I want a God manual. I want like the actual, like God was like, hey, remember that on the 5th day? Listen, I actually did this. I added a little of this, and then I was like, boom. And if you do that, you'll get it done.
I mean, like the on the topic of ontological arguments that relates to what you're saying, like the aspects that you're talking about, like, are hard to argue for a theist. Like it's harder for theists to be like, we don't know how this shit happens, therefore God. That's a very hard argument. Anybody has any mind at all is going to be like, it's an almost impossible argument to make. But if you have an ontological argument, you're actually trying to construct a logical contradiction that can mean that there's no way God couldn't exist other than what I'm saying. So in that respect, although I think they're totally flawed arguments, that they do have a seductive quality to them in that respect.
Oh, absolutely. In fact, this, contingency arguments over here, in my opinion, are used to entice the skeptics or to keep the believers who are questioning. Because
they're more effective.
you get a lot of flack, and you get the people that say, hey, I get the Jesus and this, but I want a more intellectually satisfying thing. I don't think that this is always the reason why people are in the faith originally. People, I think it's more raised, I think inherited, or hell, if you're in America, it's a good ticket out of jail to become religious.
Can be, yeah.
But these types of arguments, they are efforts. I really am. I am joking, not joking, saying that A, for effort, you are trying something, but in my opinion, this is you can write as many premises and a conclusion as you want, you then need to go and test it. So first step, I'm not going to shit on philosophy. Yeah. I know they're used to atheists shitting on philosophy, which really isn't
I'll
what
do
we're
that.
doing. Well, they ask us what we want. I want empirical scientific evidence. But if you still need to philosophize or think deeply or whatever you want, write things down before you go out and test it.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that, but just like you were saying, it like ultimately all these positions around God fail tremendously when it comes to like actual evidence and scientific like empirical evidence. And so while folks like Otangelo want to like dabble in the I can use science to prove that God exists, ultimately those things they're super weak, like because and they're trying to mix in these aspects of saying like God is supernatural, but I want to use naturalistic mechanisms to show the impossibility of evolution, therefore God. That's really difficult. So in some ways, somebody who comes to the table that says I can't science, God is outside of science, I'm not going to be able to use science to prove God whatsoever. You want to say prove the resurrection through science? Not possible, because God works outside of those boundaries. Those people can like try to make these, like there's a reason why ontological arguments have been around for a long, long time, because they have an aspect of validity that doesn't involve science. It doesn't involve that kind of empirical testing. Yeah, exactly.
Well, I agree. And I think it shows its stretch marks and it shows its timestamp a little bit, in that we needed natural philosophy to have science. And there was a time when philosophy was where the best and brightest minds of humanity were.
Science was more alchemy.
If you are in the like it said 1,000 years ago, the 1500s, the 1800s, maybe at the beginning, right at the beginning of the 1800s, that was the hottest game in town. And so it wasn't until the scientific revolution that the empirical method, I would say, started to reign supreme. It wasn't overnight, but now that is what I want, because they always ask, just like Bubbles would say. I always love the word undeniable. It reminds me of the phrase
undeniable proof.
God will not be mocked. Yeah. Okay, yeah. I'm role playing for 2 seconds. I'm God. There we go.
I gave you undeniable proof.
Undeniable proof. God will be mocked.
And you just denied it.
I mean, Bubble comes in and goes, I have undeniable proof based like scientific proof, but not to be like a dick about this, but like Bubble's got no background in science. Bubble's admitted, like, I don't even think Bubble went to college. So, but Bubble's not no biology background whatsoever, but he's making these pontifications on like, while I understand evolution can be explained simplistically, it's extremely complicated. And this, and frankly, these areas of evolution, and I'm a climatologist, evolution, climate change, like epidemiology, these subjects, they're very, like there's very complicated, and there's a lot of gaps in there for people to take advantage of the fact that so complicated. I can like intelligent design and evolution. People can be like, hey, I can spin this, to my advantage, and I can take advantage of the fact that not a lot of people know, or like
they don't know the nuance.
Yeah, exactly.
Deep into it.
And
I mean, there are people who have spent decades, and there are people who have spent decades studying this field, writing papers, doing experiments, and for you to come around with just no background and just hand wave all that away and say, I don't understand it, therefore it's all bullshit or it's all nonsense, is really that takes quite a set there. But yeah.
So we are sending love to Bubbles and all of our theist brothers and sisters. We are going to be we're looking for theists out there to join us and talk about the ontological argument for the existence of God. We got Jason to come on here and
I can
think
leave anytime. So yeah,
I thought you brought up good points. I think
thanks.
it is very
Jason always
definitional
brings
based. I feel like they need to set their
goods.
own turf. You bring the goods. That's right, baby. I
Jason
feel like
always
it's
brings the
almost
goods.
like it's like they have to build a canon for you. You have to build the environment, and then you just have to slowly build yourself up there, sentence after sentence.
Build Gotham City and then insert Batman into it.
Allow me to have that a God's a concept, and then concepts exist in all possible worlds, and then there's a possible world where this great being exists, and this great being has to exist in all possible worlds, and then that being in all possible worlds, a word in all possible worlds, that God has to exist in all our possible. It's like, holy moly! I feel like there's a lot in just a paragraph.
I mean, the last thing is that, like, even if you just break it down to the most basic ontological argument, and Darth uses this one all the time. Darth Dawkins, that's like, I don't know if I'm going to phrase it right, but like,
never do it as good as he does.
Well, it's like, if God exists, if God exists, then rationality and reason exists. Or if God did not exist, rationality and reason would not exist. Rationality and reason do exist, therefore God exists. Like, he uses the fact that, like, rationality and reason could not exist without God. So, but he's making this assumption right in the beginning about that rationality and reason wouldn't exist without this initial creator, and that's an assumption.
Yeah. That's the Mr. Batman 1 + 1 = 2 = Jesus fallacy. That you can't even do 1 + 1 = 2 without referring to Jesus. So therefore,
I mean,
you're on your way to hell.
Darth is like really good at this, where he like defines God as the ultimate creator, the
subset of all possibilities.
That which the world,
all that is possible.
Correct. Yeah. So he defines that. And then when he defines that, then he hits you up with all these issues that says like his agnostic atheist position. He's like, are you an agnostic or are you an atheist? You're like, I'm an agnostic. He's like, that's incoherent, because you're actually an atheist if you say you're agnostic, because you live in a world of which there is this God, which is the ultimate creator.
Yeah.
And so if you say you're agnostic and you don't know, like,
you're saying there could be facts independent of God, so therefore that's an indirect denial of God.
That's
wow,
exactly
we've watched
right.
way too much Darth. Wow,
that's exactly right. No, you have watched too much Darth. That's
but it's
exactly
like a maze. It's it's like a maze trap where he's just looking. Either one leads you to his solution of God. So why even play? Why even play if both solutions?
You can't fight the script, Amy.
Why do we play anything? It's fun, like
you cannot beat the script.
A glutton for punishment.
A glutton for punishment. Oh, I love talking to free suppers. So just like I want you guys to come on here and tell the arguments. The funniest thing I have ever seen for all the is with T-Jump and Pine Creek. They both do conversations with P-Subs, fantastic. And a good solution is to just pretend that you just converted now on air and to start trying to debate theology, to which they do not want to do at all.
They run away.
Like, no. Or to say, I am God and I am revealing myself to you now, which is also another way to... They seem to get flustered.
Yeah, I mean, like, because Darth doesn't want to talk about his position, which is he's like divine and special revelation is where he gets all his, his foundations. But he doesn't want to talk about that. He wants to talk about your position because he can't really back up his
Gary,
position.
come on the street. I mean, not literally. I'd have to wipe. But
I don't know if you want Darth on here. He's an 800-pound gorilla. He'll like.
Amy knows how to handle that.
I would love it. The reason, and I'm calling you out. Hold on.
Oh, gonna click
calling Gary out.
I think some theists just want to listen, and that's fine. but I swear some theists are afraid to be
Who's
here
that?
just because they will give time. And if we give them too much time, they will have to actually explain their goddamn
Who's
positions.
that? Don Willis. He comes in the chat sometimes, and he says he won't come. He doesn't want to come on.
Hey, and we will give you all the time in the world. The link is in chat right down there. I won't mute you, Darth, or anybody, unless you're talking over people. I want clean sound bites. But besides clean sound bites, I want to
Won't
give
mute you, just-
everybody...
We'll let you make your bad argument.
That's right. And then you can let us speak. That's the other problem why Darth would not come on here, or others. Prove me wrong, Gary. Gary Oak. Come on. Come on.
He'd be really rude. He'd be rude to you, Amy. You know, so
Amy's used to it.
he was
Amy,
rude to you. Yeah.
But hey,
Amy's used to talking to
still
Nazis, telling her to get in their ashtray. So I mean, she's got thick skin for that.
Exactly. That stuff, it actually just makes me laugh. The worst stuff, because what happens is they say terrible things and then it doesn't make me upset. And for some reason, that makes them upset. And I not. And then Pat says, don't forget that Jason and the gauntlet is being thrown down, ladies and gentlemen, are looking for theists out there to come on and debate me, brah, or us, regarding the scientist basis for a worldwide flood and a young Earth.
Yeah, let me just say
climate scientist on a flood.
Let me just say one thing on this, like just to reiterate what Pat's saying, because Pat is awesome, and he and I have talked about this. Pat, I'm calling out anybody that will debate us on these topics. Like I double dog dare you two people to debate me and Pat. I'll do the science piece, the geoscience piece. Pat will handle the historicity and anthropological aspects, but we're interested in these issues of young Earth, the Noah's flood, the flood, Noah's Ark, or any aspects of historicity with regards to the Bible and your perspectives. Like, bring it. We're down with it, and that I don't care who it is. Actually, I was thinking if Nephilim wants to do it, if there's somebody on SFT's group that like want to do it, we're down. And yeah, but we'll do it right here. I'll let Amy, these guys host it, and so
give you all the time in the world to talk.
Thank you, Jason.
Say your position.
I challenge you. Bring it, dudes. Come on. Or dudettes, whoever you are, like, I'll do it. Anyways, okay, I'm gonna get off here. I'll let you guys bring somebody else on. So
It was lovely having you, Jason,
thank you so much,
and
Jason.
thank you for your points.
Yep, right on. Good seeing you.
And all right,
there
were two schmucks. We will go on for another 15-20 minutes by ourselves, or you could come on here because we would like to go longer.
And make us stay up late longer later.
Go hot, baby. So
we're not ready for bed yet.
That's right. Got my caffeine fix. I am good to go. Right down there, ladies and gentlemen.
I guess while no one else is on, I can ask you what part you got to see of the Matt Dillahunty debate, the slavery debate.
I really didn't get to see almost any of it. I basically said hi to everybody. Was it a decent debate? You said it was a little bit.
It was a dumb. I mean, not like in terms of that. It was just very one-sided. It was, I mean, yeah. Converse tried. I don't know why, of all subjects, this is the one subject why this hill is something they want to die on, because it's so bad. Like their arguments and everything. Yeah, it was ugly, Jason. He got beat up real bad. I don't know why this is the hill they want to die on. I think it's just because slavery is just such a clearly evil thing. It's like they feel like they have to jump in there and defend their God on it. But I mean, the evidence is just not on their side. It's just a silly argument to say that, well, people were going to do it anyway, so God decided to set up rules to make it not as bad as what they would have done on their own. But yet, God is clearly, people were still putting their peepees in the wrong holes, and God had no problem stepping in and saying, like, no, if you do that, I will kill you. He didn't give any fucks. He didn't say, well, just cover it up, cover your Peter before you stick it in that hole and it won't be as bad. No, he didn't care. He didn't say, well, people are going to pick up sticks on the Sabbath. It happens. Not a big deal. He said, no. I mean, of course, he shall surely be put to death, because why the fuck not? You know?
Literally killed. It's always like a tip your hat fedora. The atheists aren't making this up. God killed a man for picking up sticks on the Sabbath.
Yeah. It wasn't,
Who would
you've
not
got to...
like the game Pick Up Sticks.
And then I think even Matt Dillahunty brought it up, but one of the apologetics for slavery was that, according to the book of Revelations, it will always be a thing all throughout human history till the end. Because, if you remember, we haven't quite got that far in our Skeptic Bible study, but the book of Revelation says that the Antichrist, whoever they think that is, will cause everybody to come and get the mark, free or bond. But wait a minute.
They're going to get Mark, run.
Mark Reed. But wait a minute, Amy. If there are people at the end of the world that are free and bond, then there's got to be slavery up until the very end, right? Because you wouldn't have a whole class of people who are free and then a whole class of people who are bound to service. I mean,
and not the kinky version. No.
Yeah. People in bondage, bound to labor, whether they want to or not. But yeah. Then, of course, we had fun with Bubble the other day. People asking about how old he is and his age, 30 what? Years? But time isn't real? You remember that boondoggle there, Amy?
Look, where did the time go?
Yeah.
If time doesn't exist, I don't know. But Pat says, when it comes to handling 15-foot, I think Amy might be far too willing to handle them. And a reminder,
she knows what she's doing there.
You can tag James W. and myself in chat at Amy Newman if you would like your comment, thought bubble, or one-liner read on screen. That's right, baby. I like being tagged. But you could instead join us.
Come on in. The water's nice.
We are Calling Me Skeptical.
Amy won't bite.
That's right, baby. On the ontological argument for the existence of God. And hey, if you're an atheist, now's the time to jump in as well, who just is like, oh, I've been dealing with all of these damn premises at a conclusion that cannot be tested. Look, sometimes you need a good syllogism, okay? I'm not going to say you don't. I just think that sometimes you want more.
Well, what like the other thing, so God can't make a rock so big he can't lift it. He can't forgive people without something dying, because we have to have animal sacrifice, and then we have to send Jesus to the cross so that I can forgive you, so I won't have to roast you in hell forever. But also, if God is all-knowing, like if he knows everything, that means he also knows what he's going to do. But then he can't really, he's kind of a slave to himself. He's kind of a slave to reality, because he can't change his mind. He can't alter his thoughts, because he already knows what he does. So at that point, he's just a character in his own play, unable to deviate from it at all. He's a slave to himself. Oh boy, here we go.
And all right, we're going to go to our
I think
next
this is another
call
ally,
with Lucia. Luca.
Luca.
Da
He
da
debated Ken
da.
Hovind too.
Hi,
What is up,
Is it Luca or Lucia?
Luca.
Luca.
Luca?
Okay.
It
Last
is
universal common ancestor.
lovely to have you on. We are calling me skeptical on the ontological arguments for the existence of God. I hope you're doing well. What are your thoughts?
Well, I'm not so good with this kind of argument, but I was there in the chat, in the side chat, and I thought that it was nice to open, at least for a little.
Woohoo! Well, welcome
Good
on.
to have you on. Good to have you on. Right, we've seen you in chat before, so good to finally get to talk to you.
Thanks. It's a pleasure to be here.
So, what do you think about any of these arguments?
I think that they are quite weak, but religious people want to believe in that, so it's almost impossible to talk with them because they won't even listen.
They cling to whatever is available almost.
Yes.
I have also found that the few theists who have been converted from arguments like these it's almost like they start selling it. It's hard to explain. Like their whole shtick then becomes to now present that argument, and they're very good at it. They're good at saying it fast sometimes, and they're also good at presenting it in a way sometimes where it's like, well, what is, if you don't have a necessary being, then what do you have? And it's like, was I supposed to say there was a necessary being?
Yes.
But it feels like the ones who do get converted to it, it sounds like this becomes the selling shtick. I don't know how to say. Maybe shtick is it?
It's a boilerplate argument, like a banner, hang your hat on type argument.
Yeah, time to time I do find myself in this kind of discussion. Those are not my field, not at all. I'm a chemist, so my thing is science.
Organic chemistry, inorganic. What kind of chemistry?
I just have a bachelor, so I'm not specific.
Okay. Not specified.
Yes.
Are you an atheist, agnostic?
Well, as I said, both, because I do not believe in a God, and I'm not sure if a God exists or not.
You don't claim all knowledge, right?
Yeah.
Were you a theist at one point, or have you always
I was
been?
a Catholic.
You were Catholic, okay.
Like most of Italians are. So.
Okay, you're in Italy.
Yeah, I am.
Okay.
Now, can I ask, were you enticed into any of these types of arguments, or was it more just a family, an event? Was it?
In Italy, it's a very, very. You are born into it, so almost no one ask question or things like that. They just accept as it is. So there are no winds up there. People are quite chill about it. So it's hard to find someone that fights back. It's to everyone's believe in it, basically. So there are not.
And it's hard when everyone believes in it, because you probably, when you start questioning, you probably think that you're the crazy person. When
Yes,
yeah,
but
Cultural, familial.
it's not like they say anything to you. When I said to my parents and my family that I was not longer a believer, the reaction was, "Yeah, it's just a phase," and they never broke it. No one cared.
that's a good reaction, though. I'll take that. The over
Yeah,
so
it was not a bad reaction at all, but it's like they don't even listen to you. Then it's like, yeah, you are not a believer, don't care. Business
You'll come
as
back
usual.
one day. God will
No,
reveal
no,
himself
no.
to you.
They don't even try. It's like, okay, you don't want to came to church, fine, don't care.
you're saying it's become boring over there, basically. They're like,
Yeah,
yeah, you can take it, leave it.
don't no one even cares. It's literally because a lot
That's
of people are Catholics but don't even go to a mass. So people
Right.
don't even ask questions. There are some that are more into it, so you can find someone to fight. I remember when the Vatican scandal, sex crimes, and the Vatican came out. Then there was a little bit of stir, a lot of people mad, and yeah, there I
as they should
remember,
be.
yeah, a lot of people arguing about it. There was a lot of control over those kind of information. I know about these things from travel, because I went to the Netherlands and people talk about it, but inside Italy, no, it came out later, but there was a lot of control over that kind of information. You won't be able to know things like that from the TV, for example. Internet was at the beginning of its career, so it was almost
Hard to
impossible to
get new
know anything
information.
about it.
What was it, Luca, that brought you out of the Catholic Church? What made you an atheist?
Uh, I grew up in a small city outside Milan, so up here things are far back. It's not like Milan. It's a very European city.
Right.
Where do I live? It's not the same thing. It's better now, but when I grew up, people were uh, how can I put it, very homophobic, and so people try literally to kill me a couple of times.
Because you were you're a gay man, so they
No,
tried to
I'm
kill you.
not.
You're
I'm
not.
not,
Oh, okay.
but they thought that I was.
They thought that you were, so they tried to kill
Wow.
you. Oh.
Yeah, they tried to cut my head off with a
Oh.
window, and they try to stab me. So
Hold on
I,
1 second. Ladies and gentlemen, religion.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah. So I brought these kind of things over to my priest. It was not. It was a young individual. It was a boy. But I brought this up and I said to him, I think those things are wrong, of course. And I remember that he looked at me and said, okay, but you cannot change your religion like that. You cannot say those things are simply wrong. And I looked at him and I said, okay, why it's wrong to say that? And he looked at me completely shocked. He was speechless, and I just walked away to the building. I was in an old church. It's pretty common to have those here, and I never returned.
Yeah. Wow.
Yes.
That is messed up, and I am glad that. Well,
Very traumatic
I'm
experience.
glad that you have found the skeptic community, who I think will treat you way, way, way better.
To say the truth, I did not find any community until some years ago, and right now the situation in Italy it's far better. It's not like
good.
that anymore.
As far as secular organizations and just secular acceptance.
I think that just people with because
in terms of violence against
Less
gay people,
homophobic.
people now are more in touch with the world, so there is no more those kind of thinking. If you grew up in the 90s in Italy, you can look at the films and everything about it, TV shows and so on and so forth. There was a very backwards mentality. You are gay, you are funny,
right.
we will make fun of you, and if someone beat you to a pulp, no one will care.
No one cares.
Yeah,
good for them.
It was like that. It was.
I think that was pretty common over here too in the 90s. It was.
Yeah. I think that the American shows and films do a lot because we do not have so much in terms of film production.
Media. Okay.
Yeah. So even if you look at our shows, there are whole copied from USA, basically. I did not catch up to it because in the 90s it was impossible to do so. It was really impossible to find any shows online because there was no internet was barely a thing. So how can
AOL dial-up?
Now we got high-speed internet. And all right, Luca, we are about to actually transition to what might be the last caller of the night, unless some theists join. But I wanted to ask what your final thoughts were on ontological arguments for the existence of God.
I think it's a weak argument, but people theists just want to believe in it. I think that no one that it's not with a bias will ever
be persuaded,
find it convincing. Okay,
right.
So I think that it was a pleasure to chat.
Absolutely,
it was
Luca.
A pleasure to talk with you, Luca.
Bye.
And I'm so glad it got better
any
there.
other time.
Bye.
Yeah.
Bye.
And now we're going to talk to a guy who wants to make it better everywhere.
Yes.
Woo-hoo. Woohoo!
Can needs
right.
no introduction.
This is gonna be the last caller of the night, unless we can find us another theist, because I think they're afraid to show up. But Oz,
Maybe Oz can
what
get his brother on.
the hell is up? And we are calling me skeptical here tonight about ontological arguments for the existence of God. I hope you are awesome. And what are your thoughts about all these shenanigans?
Oh boy.
I'm doing better because I just gave my life to my Lord and personal Savior, Jesus Christ. No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. That did not happen. But going back to the last caller, if that does not scream what Christopher Hitchens asserted, which is religion poisons everything, I don't know what else the fuck you need to hear.
Yeah, exactly.
They went after this, man or young man, whatever, I don't know, but went after this person because they had a sneaking suspicion
Yeah.
that he may just be gay.
He may be one of those.
How fucked up is that? Like that is so
pretty darn. Yeah.
That is so fucked up. So we had this cute little sneaking suspicion that a person may be a thing or not a thing, and in the name of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, we're going to go do this thing to this person that's going to bring, hurt, harm, damage, whatever. But
I think that Amy Newman might be one of those too. She might be in that crew. Just saying.
Yeah, well, and that's I'm being as facetious as I can be without just saying, oh, I have here are all my friends that belong to this community, and before you ever fuck with them, come fuck with me. Just assume that I am, and come fuck with me, please. But with the argument that I heard on here, that I saw, it doesn't in 2021, almost 2022, whether it's the ontological, cosmological, anthological, or teleological, or fuck your logical argument. None of them. I've never met one person. I've never met one single person in all my 40 years. It was like, oh man, I was persuaded and convinced, like Paul said he was in the Bible. I was persuaded and I was convinced that Jesus is Lord because of the ontological argument. I've never heard that shit.
Yeah. Doesn't really happen.
So it's and I've told my buddy Khalil, and the other ones that do all these arguments. It's like, if it convinces you, cool, like that's cool, like good for you, I guess. But how? I don't understand how. I don't understand how those arguments convince anybody that there is a God. I don't get it. I don't fucking get it.
Yeah, I was demystified, like when I actually went into it, because I was expecting some like heavy lifting, arguments that would make me sweat while I'm sleeping at night, and it's just like, you guys are writing things into existence. Like, I appreciate, like I said before, A for effort, but I don't know how any of that. Like, you just have to assume so much that you don't have any empirical evidence for, that it's like you have to assume the God.
You're not worried about going to hell because of the ontological argument, Amy? You're gonna wake up in hell, with next to Mark Weiss or Bill Weiss.
That's
Bill
right,
Weiss.
Bill Weiss.
Well, and that's what from whether it's the ontological or cosmological or
I think he said COVID logical.
You know what I'm saying.
So many logicals.
They don't
gotta
want
get
to. Yeah, Holden logical, Dr. Josh logical, all the logicals.
Mr.
Um,
Mr. Batman, logical, Sir Logical.
they want to say, oh no, we're not. We don't presup. We're not. We don't believe in presuppositions.
Never.
The fuck you don't.
Darth would even say he's not.
The fuck you don't. That's what the fuck are you talking about?
You really can't get through any of the premises, even any of the premise ones, without really taking board a whole bunch of stuff that I would never be comfortable in
pills.
anything but a hypothetical.
It would even be too much for Amy to be comfortable with. Too long.
Because once you grant that anything can be possible, it's like, well, sure, we're going to go wherever you want because you just granted yourself, you know, the Minecraft world, and now you're just building in it. But I wish they'd march their butts into the lab. I think that was the exact expression I would use. Like, it's great.
Come up with something.
Yeah, the other
some type
thing,
of evidence.
You ask them, what is the last philosophical argument or philosophical discovery that you have found in the past 50 years? They've been talking about this for thousands of years, but
yeah,
I
what is it
don't know how you
tangibly
can prove a necessary being. It's everywhere.
No, and that's they hate it. They hate it, and that's because that's what they all hang their hats on. You know, is that the necessary being that grounds all things? No, that's not such a thing, except in your head. You believe that in your head, but that doesn't make it means that doesn't mean it's a thing.
So then I ask, what is your source of all that is possible and that all possibility flows from?
Me, bitch.
Amy, where does your everything, where does all possibility flow from and originate from, Amy?
If you had to ask me, it would be the a priori posterior. It's the before but. The before but always.
It flows out of the
almighty but. Yes. Also, hi, Kathy. Hey, Theus, we're still... I think Oz is going to be our last one tonight. We're going to keep on going because we're having fun, but I wish Khalil joined the stream. I will give you...
Khalil.
I feel so bad. I was only half bad, but I was in Khalil's chat like
once again
2 different streams today. Because he had one where he did a Discord, and he had a premiere and then a live stream.
But isn't Khalil the cosmological, not the ontological?
He is. Oh no! So we had planned the ontological tonight, but he was just that was just what seemed to just pop up by random today. I go on all the Theist streams. Sometimes I know Praise is having or just had a smoky debate and all this stuff. So I kind of lurk on a whole bunch of different Theist streams for my guilty pleasure.
Yeah, Khalil's my dude. I don't care. I was just making sure we didn't switch or something.
And I'm learning that they are very specific. You're right. The contingency or the cosmological arguments over there on change and time, and then these are the ontological arguments, which is
necessary
basically it's setting up premises to basically say it couldn't be any other way. It has to exist. This is
right. They have no evidence for it, but it has
all
to
worlds. Be. But it does. But it does remind me of this, I guess, philosophical take on trying to prove theism. I don't know.
I don't. whether it's the ontological or the cosmological, I've had multiple people say, well, this just gets us to theism. And I said, no, it's not an us thing. Respectfully, it may have got you to theism. It still doesn't get me to theism. So it didn't get us there. It got you there.
Well, the joke I was saying earlier was they kind of use it like a gateway. Like, just accept that with the contingency. They're like, everything comes into existence, right? Come on. We know things come
Except
into
for God.
existence.
Except for God. He doesn't.
Except for this one thing. And at that point, that's almost like you're setting up the ball. Like, you're just setting up to tee, so you can go like that.
So you can do the whole, the Wayne's World, the swing, swing.
But yeah, these aren't what convinced me. These were not the reasons why I was a theist. I'm with Luca. I think James. I think Oz. We were all just raised in it. And it's a select portion that these arguments are aimed at. They're aimed at us, the skeptics, the non-believers.
But hasn't like even Turk said that this isn't an argument that convinces people? Hasn't he even said that? Or am I mistaken?
That if it's not true, I agree either way, because I think it's only a real small sliver. I think even the convert stories that I hear, an event happens or personal experience or fleshlights we were talking about earlier. No.
Bubbles, fleshlight experiment for ghosts.
We
Apparently
never
more
learned.
powerful than Ouija boards even.
I
even
swear
more
he
powerful.
set me up on that because he was talking Ouija boards for all the other streams, and now I learn about flashlights. What do flashlights do? I want to know what flashlights do.
What, flashlights or flesh?
Well,
I
for our
misunderstood
purposes.
him the wrong turn. So now that's... But I think he originally, I think, said flashlights because he told me I was too afraid to test ghosts. And I said, why? Is it because of the Ouija boards? And he said, no, because of the flashlights. But I don't know. I mean, if flashlights can detect ghosts, I have like an LED lantern. We can get this thing on. I can,
what is that like?
Get the traditional flashlight.
Like the mirrors, scrying into mirrors, and all kinds of crazy things that they do. And the thing with that is that light can do some crazy things at times, especially when you're putting it through lenses and stuff. You get all kinds of crazy artifacts in photographs. It's not really evidence of ghosts.
That's true. Wait a second. I really now want to know the angle because in my head I was making it more complicated for him than it all. Like, is the flashlight like a gateway? And now I'm just imagining him. Well, not him. Well, it's not a flashlight, and it's just like, all right. Do you see the spooky apparition in front of the flashlight? Yes. It's your fingers.
The flashlight. Is it moving back and forth? Is it moving up and down?
So we're talking about
is it 15 feet long?
Flashlights with an A.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Definitely with an A. You would never hump something with an A. Anyway.
Just don't ask to borrow Amy's flashlight.
Never.
Yeah.
But
gotta
yeah.
replace the batteries in this thing. Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah, we've been talking ontological arguments. We'll go for like another 10 minutes or so. But I don't think a theist is going to actually join us. I think we just had a debate about evolution. But the ontological argument, I don't know how many defenders of it there are. At least in our little YouTube debate community.
Yeah, more of a discussion about Bubbles' obstinate refusal to understand evolution, but That's all that really is.
Yeah, I don't understand why evolution trips up so many creationists.
That's the hill he wants to die on, but
How is that even still a thing? I don't understand.
Amazing.
I don't fucking understand how that's still a thing.
Yeah, I don't understand. To me, like I was saying to James earlier, evolution is easy to
fact.
understand. Well, not only is it a fact, but I feel like it's easy. It's not quantum mechanics. It's not a hard
Conceptually.
subject. Like you should be able. We teach this stuff starting in middle school, and you should be getting graded on it decently by high school. And so we use coloring books to start teaching evolution. Brown bug, green bug. I couldn't get bubble over my bubble. My bubble.
Automatic bubble.
My bug example, which was green skin, blue skin on a green leaf. What do you think's going to be naturally selected for? It's not about. You don't have to be a genius to say. It's pretty sure green ones are going to survive and the blue ones are going to get picked off.
I don't get. I don't fucking get it. I don't know how it's still a thing.
Yeah, though I don't know how flat Earth is still a thing.
Yeah, I was just thinking of that.
That's true.
That's true. The flat Earth thing.
Dude, we live on a flat Earth, bruh.
It's like a pizza.
You one of those round Earth tards, those globe tards.
I know that everyone makes slang about everyone. I just find that funny, like a round tard.
Globe-tard.
Okay, globe tard. But the funny thing is, that stuff makes me laugh when you call people, like I call a turf, and I call a flurf a flurf. And oh my lordy, like they explode. When I say that term, they generally have to spend the next 5 minutes of us debating over the term. And it's like, dude, you're a flurf. You're a turf. Just accept what you are. I am a globetard tranny, and I love it. It feels great.
Tyrannosaurus Rex.
Just a Tyrannosaurus Rex. Exactly. Accept who you are.
Yeah, I call an idiot an idiot. I call a dumbass, and they fall where they may.
Oh, Otangelo Transpo.
Fuck Otangelo.
He has drawn his own shovel. His own shovel. Yeah. So yes, what I said. I mean, let me tell you, it is the terrible thing about religion. Okay. Just like Luca was saying earlier, when the holy text preaches that that gays should be stoned, and we're not talking about the ganja, well, it's going to trickle down. We basically potty trained the Christians. That's another thing. I hate the Christians who are like, oh, why don't you go talk to the Muslims who are throwing gays off of buildings? And it's like, yeah, I should pat you on the head for not throwing me off a building. Thanks. Wow, you didn't stone me to death like your book actually commands you to. Hold on here.
But you're still going to say that book is right and good and holy and true. And
exactly. Oh, that's just the Old Testament, James. It's just the Old Testament.
Well, even Paul in the New Testament, he clearly is not down with homosexuality. Says the effeminate will be partakers of God's wrath.
Well, and here in the states, and I'll just be assertive when I say this. After everything that happened with my mom's passing, everything that happened with that, and everything that's happened since then, and especially what's happened with me personally this week. The more I'm just observing, and the more I study and research, I'm no longer saying the closer I get to being. I've just arrived to being in a position as an anti-theist where it's I don't give a
Welcome
shit.
aboard.
I don't give a shit about your religion anymore. I don't give a fuck about your religion anymore. I care about you, the human. I care about you, the person, and your well-being and your safety. And I want you to, be treated well and taken care of. But when it comes to that religion, that belief, that really, really bad idea that you hold, fuck that thing, because it fucks so many people up and it does so much goddamn damage that I don't have to respect that, and I don't have to be cool with it. And if you want me to be cool with it, yeah, I'm probably not the guy you want to talk to anymore. And I'll still be I'll still be cool and take the respectful approach as far as conversations and whatnot with those that want to have that type of dialogue. I will always welcome that and be that guy. But for the ones that just want to shove the religion down my throat or someone else's throat and ignore all of the absurdities and the disgusting bullshit that comes packaged with it,
Absolutely.
fuck that shit. And I'm done being nice when it comes to the bad ideas that are associated with the fucking religions. And here in the States, I agree, Amy, we've for too long now coddled Christians.
Coddle
It's like
babies.
it's oh, well, you don't do this, so you're okay, and you don't do this. No, motherfuckers, you guys are. We did an episode on it. I think it was 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago. American Christianity is the pedophiles' playground. You guys have created a playground for pedophiles to absolutely abuse and take advantage of and fuck up young people's lives. And that's just a portion. That's not even everything, but just that in and of itself. You've created this playground, and every time they do it, you just brush it under the rug, act like it didn't happen, and then if they do speak up, you gaslight them, and you fuck them up even more. So I'm done coddling and patty caking that shit.
You were going to have your better event, but a certain group of people decided that COVID's not real. What group of people was that? People who don't like to take vaccinations.
Yeah.
Yep. And guess what? I live in I think it's the second least.
The Bible Belt?
I'm in Bible Belt 2.0 in the Midwest.
Yeah.
But Indiana is, I believe, the last I saw, which was several weeks ago. It could be different now, but was the second least vaccinated state in America,
behind like Alabama or Mississippi or one of them.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I just want to bounce off that, because we do get flack sometimes for the religion poisons everything mantra. I really do believe it's true. Some people will say, not a little of it or some amount of it. And I always be like, how much bullshit is the right amount? And so, in my opinion, 0% superstition is the goal. And so
we may never get there. Oh, Oz train.
Sorry, I guess.
We may never get to zero, and that's the thing that people say, that, well, will we ever totally eradicate religion? We might not. We'll probably never eliminate all superstition, but will we relegate it to a shell of what it currently is? I definitely think that's the goal. I think that's definitely possible.
Well, and I know, Amy, you said we had like 10 or 15 minutes. So if no theists join, maybe we can end on this question, and I'll ask
with a word of prayer.
And Shande Melekum. what is there any area of here in the States of our day-to-day lives, our government, our education system, is there anything that we can think of to where maybe we can, where I can eliminate any bias now, being a former Christian, that religion does not poison or has not poisoned up to this point? Can we identify anything that it hasn't poisoned or damaged up to this point? Because I can't identify one, so that's why I'm asking. Because I say that, I don't say it just to say it. Like I've sat down and went through things like, okay, is there anything that I can think of that religion hasn't poisoned or fucked up? I can't find one. Can you guys name one?
I can name things that would sound like they were good, and then they all have this like bittersweet, sweet, evil edge to them. Like community is something religion does really well as long as you're the in-group. As long as you're the in-group, everything's fine. But the moment you get outside that in-group, you are tossed out,
Right.
you are treated horribly, and that's if you're lucky enough to even survive.
Yeah, so that well's poisoned. That well's poisoned.
Right.
Exactly.
That well.
I would just
that well's
say,
poisoned.
is there anything good that we need religion for, or that we can't do on a secular basis? And I don't think there is, really.
Right, I agree, but with me making that statement, and you know, Amy, you saying you agree, I think we have to do our due diligence to say, you know, if we're going to make that assertion, that we examine those things. I can tell you, I've spent hours examining. I cannot find anything, you know, and I'm only 40 years old. I don't know everything, but based on what I've observed and the research that I've been able to do, I can't find anything that religion hasn't, in one way or another, poisoned or just fucked it up.
I agree. Three anti-theists here.
In fact, like, we really only started developing as a species when we told the religious fanatics to take a seat and we're going to let the scientists try their hand at it. And then boom, we started making discoveries, we started advancing, we started developing. That was only when religion lost enough power to where they couldn't shut everything down that contradicted with it.
Yeah, that's currently where I stand, is until someone can show me something that is not like an example I'll use. I think in comparison, like what Amy was trying to say, she was using community.
Yeah.
Yes, but that well is poisoned. That well is very well poisoned. A lot of people will talk about the hospitals or the colleges that have been built or derived, you know, upon religious organizations or, you know, beliefs or whatever. Guess what? They still fuck those up. Those are still poisoned. Like you go look at like the Catholic hospitals and Catholic like family doctor practices in America. Like there's certain things like with contraceptives and all that, like that shit's poisoned. It's fucked up. Look at Baylor in Texas, here in America, and all the shit that happens behind closed doors at Baylor, which is one of the more prominent quote unquote religious colleges in America. Behind closed doors, it's all poisoned. It's all fucked up.
What they teach people about women and homosexuality and the things like that, that it just permeates into everything, their views on things.
Yeah, so that's what, you know, even the things that you would think as humans we would think would be innocent, which would be a hospital or a doctor's office or a college,
a soup kitchen where your sandwich is held hostage.
All that. It's still there's still poison. It's still fucked up, and there's still all these contingencies that if you want the sandwich, like what you're talking about, James, if
Yeah.
you want the sandwich, then you
You have
also
to
want
listen.
to have to know God.
Yeah.
That's right. It's like they're buying people over.
And I mean, we used to actually have a much more functional justice system in this country. And the thing is, we figured out that, hey, it's a lot cheaper if you take all the vocational programs out of the jails and you just have pastors come in and tell the people that it makes Jesus sad when you steal, so don't make Jesus sad. But it turns out that the vocational programs actually help people a lot more than just telling them it makes Jesus sad when you do bad things.
No shit. No
Yeah.
shit.
Go
Are you
fucking
serious?
figure.
Are
Go
you
fucking
serious?
figure.
You
Go
teach-
figure, Oz.
You teach people logic and reason and how to deal with real life issues, with real life decisions, instead of Jesus, which is a myth, and they do better.
Jesus. The power of Jesus will keep you from molesting that boy. And then the power of Jesus ain't so effective at that. Go figure.
And okay, we actually, it looks like we have Pseudonym backstage. So I'm not sure, is he a theist or atheist? I forget. I guess we'll find out. Thank you. But Oz, it was lovely having you on. As always, bringing some common sense to the channel.
Laying that
Final
hammer down.
question, though. We have been talking about ontological arguments for the existence of God. Where can people find you? Because that's important. And what are your final thoughts?
We can find myself and the rest of our crew. Well, I'll just send you to the website, tart.live, TART.live. You can find everything there. As far as ontological, cosmological, fuck your logical, all of that.
Bullshit illogical.
It's all nonsense. And the last thing I'll say, just what I've been dealing with myself here the last week or two. For those that struggle with mental health issues, you're going through anything. First of all, know there's a community there here and on YouTube to help you if you need anything, to send you in the right direction as far as different organizations. But don't be afraid to reach out and speak and talk. You have plenty of friends to back you up and be there when you need them. And I love all my people. I love our community. Love you guys. Love our community, and that's it for me.
Love you too, Oz.
I remember when a particular theist, I won't mention the name of it, came up to Oz like, Oz, wait a minute. You present as a badass, so why are you getting all upset when I make fun of people for their mental illness and their mental health issues? Come on, Oz, be a man. Oz is like, I just don't fuck around with people like that.
Yep, it's real shit, man. But no, I love y'all, and I'll be listening. Hopefully, this is a theist, and I'll listen in.
Yep.
Woohoo! Sending love right back to you, Oz, and tart.live. #better.
The theist was little peepee, by the way.
Yes.
Little peepee.
Oh my. Not a 15-foot whale. And all right, we're about to go into the last caller of the night, atheist, theist, or otherwise. That's right. We are calling me skeptical on the ontological argument for the existence of God. Pseudonym, how are you? And what are your thoughts?
I'm doing well. Thank you, Amy. Hello, James.
Hey, Pseudonym. Welcome back.
Hello. And I would like to say, first of all, that I am 1 inch off the ground when I'm laying on my stomach. And Amy, you look fantastic.
Thank you.
I do like the sweater. I actually thought they were Gengar's at one point.
They, I believe, are Gengars, right?
Oh!
Huh? Da-da-da.
Oh,
Don't
you guys got
copyright strike
more.
me, Pokemon. I love you.
You guys got more Amy Newman dancing tonight.
That's right, baby.
So that's pretty awesome. I didn't know that's what there was.
Woohoo. And so, what are your thoughts as I go like this? And so, what are your thoughts about the ontological arguments for the existence of God?
I do like the ontological argument. I think I brought it up last time I was here, but I do have problems with the ontological argument itself, but I do like it just because at one phase it does leave the possibility of God open. So I think, for example, you can say that you can say that as an atheist you won't be able to say 100% that there is no God, which leaves you open to being like an agnostic atheist or atheist agnostic.
Sure.
Yep, I think both of us are agnostic atheists.
Right. So I think that itself kind of leaves the open possibility there might be a God, because at that point you kind of relieve yourself of some kind of ontology. So you more look at the ontology of God as kind of a gauge from 0 to 100%.
Okay.
So while you can be like an agnostic atheist, at the other side, if you're willing to gauge things, you can have an agnostic theist who can say that they don't know if God exists, presumptively, but all their arguments seem to be leaning one way.
We've ran into one or two of those over the time.
And my question would be then, are you an agnostic theist?
I'm more of a theist because as far as the question, I kind of round up from 99% there being a God, so I do leave that 1% open that there might not be one.
But you're pretty sure there's
But
God.
that, though, I would say that's still agnostic, because I would say I'm pretty sure there is no God.
Right,
And
but
so, but I can't say for certainty, 100%, right?
We get very few things with absolute certainty.
right. So that question of uncertainty or certainty, like I said, would still leave that possibility open for God.
Are you a Christian, or what type of theist were you?
I don't really hold to religion like Oz or you guys. I'm not a big fan of religion, but I think religion, in the sense that we understand it, is a little different. I think religion itself would just mainly be kind of a system of faith or a pursuit and interest to whatever you think may be important. So your importance can be that, for example, you can take medicine religiously, or you could work out religiously. But I don't.
So I'm getting like deism or a certain type of spirituality, not necessarily an organized religion.
Not an organized religion, but like I do have issues with spirituality and essentially anything that might pertain that I guess that presupposition that something like God is a given.
Right. Do you presuppose that?
Yeah, that was going to be my next question. Do you presuppose God?
It's not that I guess at this point you can say I do predispose God, but it was almost like a journey of going through the different arguments of saying that okay, because I started off as a Abrahamic background of religion.
Okay.
So at that point, I would like to admit that I did come up to this presupposition that God would be kind of like the necessary being. And then I kind of hit the midway through of giving those up, and then kind of finding myself in a position of giving up Jesus or giving up the understanding.
It's hard. I tried low-fat Jesus.
But in the end, after more research, I essentially came to be a theist. But like I said, it's just to give up that that gauge or that way of ontology of certainty between uncertainty, to essentially just give. I guess I'm giving the benefit of the doubt, which I guess you can say I'm begging the question, but I would still lean towards more theism.
My question would be, what makes you 99% sure that theism is true?
I guess that open possibility that even though 99% would say that God does exist, there's that 1% that I can say doesn't exist. But in a way, I'm still kind of rounding up as far as being analogous or having a
Was
true.
there any one particular argument you found very persuasive that pushed you up to that near 100%?
Well, I think, like I said, I think it did happen to be the ontological argument, but I do have problems with it. But at least open that possibility that essentially that I admit that I can be wrong, that there are things that I think I know, but I essentially don't know, but I know that for sure. So it's almost like saying, I know that I don't know.
We know there are
or-
things we don't know, yes.
But then if I know that, there are some things that I can say, I know that I know, right? I do know that I know, that I don't know, if that makes any sense. But the reason I like,
Probably.
and then the reason I hold more to the ontological argument is because I think you mentioned earlier that there are things that can't be, like for example, you mentioned that
Very
there
bad.
can't, right, there can't be such thing as a Mary Bachelor or a squared circle. But I think
Sure.
one of the arguments for atheism or going against God is that things could have been otherwise. So, for example, I know you mentioned biblical slavery earlier, and one of the arguments would be that it could have been different, that there could have been a world where God didn't necessarily have to have slavery.
Sure. He could have said don't own people, but he
I would-
decided not.
I'd actually say that's almost evidence of there not being that God, because there could have been a universe where he didn't, and yet we're stuck in this universe where, damn, that God fudged things up, or at least a good case to say that it's not the Abrahamic God.
Right. But in that universe of how it could have been different for some reason, it couldn't have been different, that there were such thing as Mary Bachelors. So there seems to be like an overriding little clause of what could be or what couldn't be. So for you, it could have been different, but in another sense, there are things that couldn't have been different. So to have a world that has no slavery would be not unfathomable, but I guess you can't say that it would be the ideal world. But if there was no universe, those people would still have kind of a, if it's not the Abrahamic God, it would be whatever person thought of it first, named after.
Can I ask, is it the possibility that there even could be a God is what makes it 99% for you? Does that make sense?
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
As in, you said that you couldn't deny absolute certainty, that if there could be even a 0.1, basically, you're saying there's a crack and you could fit a God in there. But, excuse me, my question would be, how much of that uncertainty makes up your 99%? So how much of the fact that there could be a God makes it then go to, it's actually very likely that it's a God, super likely, I hate the word super, 99%?
super straight, likely.
Well, I mean that is as convinced as bacteria killing the hand sanitizer. So what gets you there that strong?
Kind of like I think your previous caller, I forgot his name. I don't know if it was another James or
Oz, we had
So we've had
Jason.
Jason, Bubbles, Luca, and Oz.
yeah, I think Jason, because there are multiple different arguments. One of them is like the argument from definitions, and then you have the conceptual argument. So for me, it was that that some of that percentage is coming from my mind or from my own head, just pretty much my own conceptual way of trying to, I guess, justify one way or the other one. But sometimes you can say if I am or if I'm not a brain in a vat, that there are other things independent from me that can possibly prove me wrong. So that's kind of what.
Possible.
Right. Then it's in that possibility that, like I said, there is room for God, I guess you can say. Because one of those arguments is between defining what is conceptual and what is reality, and I think that what's drawn in some of the arguments of the ontological argument, even though there are different perspectives, like St. Anselm's, or you have Lebain's, or you have, I think, the one
that
William Craig.
seems to be the guy who keeps on coming up is Saint Anselm, and then the version it seemed like the William Lane Craig
From 10th century or 11th century, yeah.
Yeah, I think William Lane Craig goes off the St. Planica's argument of the ontological argument, but that's where I have my own problems with the ontological argument. But even though
go further, I'm listening.
So I think the problems are namely that Planica's goes off to kind of equivocate some false equivocations. So to be maximal would be that you have the Christian God who is all good, omniscient, and that's what it would kind of mean to be, or all benevolent to mean that that's what it means to be all maximal. So I think that the newer theories as far as the ontological argument aren't right, but there are previous from at least 1,000 years ago that make more sense.
So you're saying the modifications for Christianity you don't like? What seems to have happened?
Right. So I would be persuaded more by like critiques from Thomas Aquinas or Immanuel Kant, where they seem to make more sense of the ontological argument.
What would it take for you to go a few points down in certainty? So from like 99 to 90, or even to 60, to like what would it take to really weaken your certainty in that?
I mean, in a hypothetical way, I would have to pretty much be convinced of solipsism, or
You'd have to be convinced of solipsism.
I would have to be pretty much convinced that whatever I'm making up is solely kind of like my idea of what reality should be or what reality is. But that's where I would be solely convinced, because even though they would be my ideas or a conceptual way of looking at things, I can't say they would be necessarily true, because other people might think otherwise, and just having that back and forth tug of war.
Well, then,
I guess.
Well, no, why? It sounds like you're telling me there's really two dichotomies right now, which is it's either God or the other possibility is it's all in my head.
Right. So if that's where I kind of do like the ontological argument, because it's the difference between a reality and a conceptual thought of what God is or what God should be. So as far as what God should be, its conceptual method you can look at it is that God should be this, but if you lean towards more like an atheist, then you can say God should not be this, in contrast to different religions. So
And so
Maximal.
I will say, we're in 5 minutes. We have the ability to have an extra special guest on here. So we're going to bring back in Oz in to ask, because he wants to ask you a few questions, Pseudonym. But then after you guys talk, that is going to wrap up the night, because we have been having fun. But we are, if you just joined us, we are calling me skeptical on the ontological argument for the existence of God.
very good.
And I think we'll just bring him in now.
I think we're ready for that. Yeah.
But Oz
Welcome
has
back,
been
Oz.
patiently waiting backstage. I think he got as excited as we did. Whenever a theist joins, we're like, I don't know why, but it's like, oh, people disagree with us. And we're like, yes. And so welcome back, Oz. And we're going to go for like another 15 minutes.
Awesome. Thanks for having me back on. And and I apologize because I missed it. What was your name?
His name's Pseudonym.
Pseudonym. Okay. So I've been listening in. So I've heard things that would point to, or then also point away from, being one that aligns with an Abrahamic religion. So is there a specific religion that you do align with, or no?
No, I like to actually be on like the side of certain believers, but you wouldn't necessarily call them believers. So you have like Spinoza, but you can say he was what's pertaining to be like one of the first naturalists. And you do have Immanuel Kant, which is a critique of pure reason, that there are things out there outside or different from our head. But I think as far as a title, I think he would be called a skeptical atheist, or just a skeptic. But I don't think he was an atheist per se. I think he started off as a Christian, but somewhere in between those lines, I guess you can put me.
Okay. And then just based on so I make sure I heard and understand everything. Okay, so you would be more of a agnostic theist. Is that what I'm hearing?
As a counterbalance to the discussion, I would agree with that.
Okay, and when I say that, just because I like to make sure that terms are 100% clear, so there's no confusion. So I say agnostic theist. What does that mean to you when I say that?
Personally saying that I can't know for certain that God exists, but it's mainly pertaining to the fact that it's possible that I can't show you evidence that God exists, but I can say that I'm I guess a believer in a sense.
Okay, all right, and then to the side, so the agnostic part is clear. So on the theist part, what is it that causes you to believe that there may be a God or a deity or a supernatural being somewhere out there?
I think it's just the issue that people have with having a conceptual version of God. So, when you said supernatural, it doesn't necessarily have to be supernatural, or if it's out there. I don't think out there would necessarily mean that we would have to go out in a rocket ship and go as far as to look for God, when it could be that God, in a way,
Right,
himself.
And sorry, I don't mean to interrupt. I say that as a colloquial, but whether it was out there or here among us, like what would cause you to believe that there may be something that is a God that's either here with us or out there somewhere? I'm sorry, I should have been more descriptive.
Just a notion that there are conceptual things, that there are, I guess, things that exist. Like I said, to be convinced of solipsism, but if you're not convinced, if you can say that you exist and I exist, there is a difference in conceptualizing what it means to exist. I guess in reality. So, for example, if you take something like, I guess an easy way would be to take a law. A law would essentially exist independent of us. It's not necessarily that we made up certain laws, but that certain laws would exist to the point where we discover them rather than kind of making them up. So I'm not too sure if that makes any sense. It's like a normalist way of looking at the world. That
Normalist?
I'm sorry, nominalist.
No, I was
No.
about to, I was about to say, are you saying normalist or nominalist? Okay. So where we stand today in 2021, have we found any good evidence to substantiate or support the claim or the assertion of there being a God or a deity that's in charge or creating or looking over what we do or our universe or our earth?
That's what you said for evidence, or
Yeah, have we found do we have any good evidence as humans? Do we have any good evidence that substantiates a God claim, that there is a God that is the creator, that he looks over his creation, that he's seeing after us, looking over our every move, and making sure that we're safe and okay, as most spiritual texts would say. And if you don't align with that, just tell me, no, that doesn't apply to me. But that most people I talk to, that's their thought.
I can't say that really applies to me, because you can presumably take the complete opposite and be true. So even though it could be that there is something looking after us, even if there is a God looking at us, it doesn't necessarily mean that he's going to do anything to make us better, because then you would have to have this notion of the maximally great being to be true, which is, I think, the whole skeptic perspective, that's obviously not the claim. That even though he's looking at us, he's not doing anything to make it better or make.
Okay, so would I be wrong or off base in asking that maybe you view this deity or God as one that is there, but it's not ever present in our lives, as like an Abrahamic religion would describe, where it's active in our day-to-day lives, that you have more of a distant, you view a God as a more distant God that doesn't really have that kind of contribution?
I think that whatever deity, at least that I believe in, I think he or she or it is a better term, kind of gives more of a subtle touch to, you kind of have that freedom or that ability to choose one way or the other one.
Okay, and have we found in your day-to-day life or anyone's day-to-day life where this God, whether it's a light touch or an everyday involvement, have we found a way to determine that God truly is present and involved, whether lightly or wholly?
I think so. But like I said, it's a real subtle instantiation of how you can look at the world. So one of the descriptions for God is perfection. So one of the arguments would be that there isn't anything perfect, even if you were to, for example, draw a triangle, then if you were to zoom in on a triangle, essentially it wouldn't be perfect. So uh, that would be one notion of it, but the other thing would be like saying that something is perfectly timed, or if you're in a position where this is perfect timing for this to happen, then you would have a conceptual um, way of thinking that there is at least some version of perfection that does exist. Or if, for example, you can relate it, I guess, to the creation of the universe, that if everything was made by chance, but if somehow some possibility causes all those chances to meet at one position, then you would have something called a coincidence. So you can ask yourself if there is such thing as coincidences, or there's no such thing as coincidences, or is it a coincidence that me and you are here talking to discuss this? You can lean yes or no, but just looking at all the possibilities and things meeting at a certain point um, would kind of delineate an ontology of what the world means. So something like perfection and coincidence not existing, but still for us to claim that it does exist, kind of takes on that same notion of, I guess, for a God. But like I said, I do have problems with the ontological argument as far as existence, because that's a heavy burden of at least explaining what it means to exist.
Well, and I'm glad you said it, because I was just trying to say that a lot of what you just said can, like, we can examine that and observe that in day-to-day life, whether it's well, let's just drill it down to what you talked about. So whether it's the well, let's use the triangle, the drawing of the triangle, whether you draw the triangle and then I follow up and draw a triangle, and they're both imperfect. That has nothing to do with whether there is a deity or not, right?
That's right. I mean, it's not necessarily, in reality, it would be a conceptual thing. But the fact that we both agree that it is a triangle, which means that we would have to have like certain angles, certain points to it, would have to make up the definition of what a triangle would be, to make that agreement that we both.
If I can pause you there, who created words and definitions?
Well, that's what I was bringing on with James earlier, that that it could have been otherwise. So I think he mentioned earlier that that we don't argue about definitions. Definitions are kind of a given, but if they're independent of us, then I think that independence of not arguing for
Definition's not an argument. It's arbitrary.
Right.
But that's my point in bringing that up, is whether it's the triangle, the word, or the definition of the triangle. Men created the words and the definitions. Those are arbitrary. That has nothing to do with a deity or a God's presence, whether it's a minimal overseeing or a maximum overseeing. We can demonstrate those things without the existence or the presence of a deity. Is why I brought that up.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree with you, but it's, like I said, it's an independence of certain things. Like, for example, even if there was no humans around and there's a brick laying somewhere, you would essentially, and what would you say that, what can you argue that it's not a brick or that it is a brick? So, or something that has four corners, or something that can gives off these right angles. So even though that there's no people around to conceptualize the definition of what it is today, or at least since human history, then without human history, you can essentially say that there was a brick there, that there was something that took on these, to take on this form, I guess you can say, of what today we call a brick.
Right.
Does
So,
that make sense?
I think so. And that's where I think I'm trying to drill down to is we have through humanity and our experience and development and evolution, we have learned, not learned, but we've described and put words and definitions to bricks and squares and rectangles and triangles. That does not necessitate a god or a deity. So what I'm trying to get out of it is, even if we have all of those things, and as humans we have grown and developed and evolved to the place that we do have words and definitions for these things, why is there why would a god or a deity need to be included in that when we've demonstrated that we don't need that?
Well, that's what I mean. That it's that subtle distinction where I think you can choose one or the other one, but I just lean towards it because even though you can call them abstractions, even though they fit that definition, they still kind of do exist. We still treat a triangle as a triangle or a square as a square to at least do like architecture.
If I could jump in there, that's what I'm trying to get to. What you just said, you said you lean that direction. So why knowing that humanity, and again science and evolution, yada yada yada, we've been able to demonstrate and show these things to be true just on a human level. Why would we need to, not just you, why would any of us need to lean towards a god or a deity, even if it is a light touch, like you said? Why would we need to lean that direction? That's where I'm losing you. That's where I'm losing touch. Is we have all of this evidence that backs up what we've done without a god, without a deity. Why would we still need to lean that way, knowing we don't need that?
Because it's still conceptualized. It's still like kind of a fruition of how things are, aside from what things could have been. So it's hard to imagine that a square or a brick could have been called a triangle at some point. And I think that it's so far accentuated in like a reality that's why we have the definitions that we do have. So tri would be 3. Quad in the definition would mean 4. Un or uni would equal 1 or universe. So somehow those concepts or those made up things made it into a definition, I guess, as you had the human race. So even if there wasn't no human race, you can still call something solely by itself.
But why attribute all of that to a god or a deity that we don't have any good substantiation for, any good evidence for?
And before you answer that, pseudonym, we're going to go for about 5 more minutes, and then we're closing shop. But I'm actually happy we got a theist on here. We've had 2 theists and someone who actually either believes in it, or maybe we can try and convince otherwise by the end of the night. But thank you, Zod. Just send in love, pseudonym, for even being here with the 3 skeptics.
Well, thank you, Amy. I appreciate it. But yeah, I think the point that I was getting at is that there is that subtle little thing where you can argue that it doesn't necessarily need a god, and you can argue that it does. So
can I stop you? It's not on the humanistic science evolution end of it. It's not subtle. It's not subtle at all. It's very prominent. It's very sustained that we don't need a god or a deity to define or demonstrate any of the things that we've been talking about. That's clear and concise. What I'm asking is, if we have that data in front of us and we have that understanding, why would we need to lean to a God or a deity that we don't even have a good reason to, or good evidence to believe is involved in our lives, whether it's, again, and I'm trying to be fair, whether it's minimal or, maximal? We don't have good evidence to support that, that being or that claim. Why lean to that when we have all of this other evidence to demonstrate otherwise?
I think it's basically what I've been saying. Like, for example, if I were to ask you, can you say 100% with certainty that there is no God in all your omniscience, and provide evidence for that without saying that the lack of evidence is indeed evidence?
I believe that there's a greater lack of evidence to support a God claim than there is evidence to support a God claim. I will take that position very strongly.
But can you show that with evidence that you don't believe in?
Actually, and I'm not being funny with you right now. I'm more when I say this is not at you. I'm more having fun with Amy and James and some of the others in the chat. I would just say, yes, look around at the trees, with evidence, yeah, I think I could. I think I could point at evolution. I think I could point at all of the atrocities. I think I could point at all of the disgusting things that happen. We already talked about this earlier, but all the disgusting things that happen in the name of not just a Christian God, but a God globally. And I could show that the whole God concept is a man-made fiction. I think I could do a pretty damn good job of demonstrating that's more likely than not that he doesn't exist, or she, or it, whatever.
Right, but wouldn't you say that relies on you having a conceptual thought of what it means to be a maximally great God?
Well, I don't know. It would depend. That would depend on what you mean by that. But again, this is with all due respect, this would be a flipping of the burden of proof, because I'm not claiming anything. I'm just wondering why, based on triangles and bricks and squares, why anyone would lean towards a God or a deity via our experience and what we have as far as data, information, science, so on and so forth, that we have in front of us now. I think what you're trying to do now is switch the burden of proof. What I want to know is why we would lean that way, instead of just saying, you know what, no, we don't have a good reason to believe that the God or a deity was the one that would be
evidence.
Yeah.
I think I'm just trying to say that part of what I'm saying is that I'm trying to just contribute that somehow in between we can break even, but it still leaves that possibility that there might be a God, because you're not omniscient enough to say 100% fact that there is no God, and you really can't provide evidence. It almost seems like you're hinging on the lack of evidence.
But I've not made a claim. I've not made a claim. I'm just saying that I think I could do a better job of providing evidence that would show that it's more likely than not that a God doesn't exist. But I did not come into this conversation making a claim. You were talking about, sorry for the train. You were talking about triangles and bricks and all that, and attributing it to a God or a deity, and I was trying to drill down to that. So it's not about breaking even, and I don't want it to be about who won or who lost. That's not what, for me anyway, that's not what it's about. What I like to try to get to know about anyone that I talk to is why they believe what they believe, and I'm trying to figure out why, with all of the evidence we have on this side, with, again, just on the humanistic side, and against science and experience and evolution and all that, why we have all of this, why would we still try to attribute shapes or bricks or whatever, maybe to a god. Like, why do we even leave that maybe there when we have all of this other data to support that that's not the case?
I think it's good.
Pseudonym answer. That's gonna be the last thing for tonight. We're gonna give. I think Cerberus wants to say something, but it's not gonna be a back and forth. He just wants to say
Right.
something. So we're about to close up shop. But Pseudonym, say something, and then Oz, if you want to have your final thing, and then we are closing up, ladies and gentlemen. But it's been fun.
I think it's a difference in the conceptual way of looking at the world. So, for example, for you, that's why I try to make that breakaway of solipsism, because for you, you would be your own truth maker as far as what you believe, but it doesn't necessarily follow that it's a universal umbrella of what other people should believe. And if you can at least agree with that, then, like I said from the beginning, it still leaves room for that possibility that there may be a God. And even though I mentioned earlier that I do have problems with the ontological argument, like calling him maximal, that you do rely on this maximal God, or this concept of being all good and all knowing, benevolent, benevolent, that you still kind of use that as a way to pin that towards the theist, based on whatever it is that you read and you learned. But me breaking even is me saying that there is at least that possibility, even though you can still come on and claim that you're not 100% sure or lack evidence as evidence.
And thank you so very much, Pseudonym.
Thanks,
And then Oz, we have been calling me skeptical on ontological arguments. Last statement.
Oh, there was a lot there to unpack, but no,
I'm doing the Socratic thing.
I was actually being very, very intentional and making sure that I said both minimal or maximal, because I don't want to pin anybody into a corner that they don't want to be in or don't deserve to be in. So that was a misrepresentation.
I was on
100%. But as far as what the data we have in front of us is what I was trying to deal with. I don't see any necessity in ever giving any god, again, whether he's maximal or minimal, I don't see any reason to give a god credit for things that we can now demonstrate in 2021, almost 2022, that mankind, through science and evolution and everything, we've been able to learn and grow and substantiate and do on our own. I don't see any good reason to give credit to a god or a deity for that, nor do I find good evidence for any minimal or maximal god to have exist or to exist or have ever existed. And I'm done.
don't do it, Titan.
And Jesus is a myth.
Titan trying to throw
Sending
bombs.
hearts to both Oz and Pseudonym. Thank you both for
Thanks,
being
guys.
on as we talk
thank you,
about the
Titan.
ontological argument for the existence of God, and sending so much love to Titan as well. And Pseudonym, I just want to thank you doubly, because when theists come on, we're always happy. We love just having our skeptic as the Socratic gangbang. That's what I think.
You
But
let
we
Oz do
love
the
having
Socratic
even
thing. He
more.
loves it.
Exactly. And we love having theists on even more. So thank you very much to my brother from another mother and
From
Pseudonym
Gizmo.
and Gizmo. And all right, Cerberus Hex, you're just having an opening statement, and then
Got
you're
Church of
closing
Entropy
us
out
out.
there. I didn't see her.
Well, I do want to say I appreciate you, Amy. Thank you for having me on. Oz, I do have
Thank
a lot
you,
of respect for you. You do you are an intellect. I can be honest that I've seen you before, and I agree with you wholesomely on all your anti-religious tactics. Not to say they're in a bad way, so I do apologize if I came off disrespectful in any way. But I was hope that it was just little bit of a civil conversation, at the very least, or minimal.
No,
Or maximal.
Maximum
I-
civil.
I will say both
Civil.
minimally and maximally. No, I appreciate the conversation, and I meant to say that up top. I'm sorry, I got all amped up for a minute, but no, I do appreciate the conversation, and I love having those dialogues. So it's all good. It's all love.
Credit gangbang.
Woohoo! Send
Dr.
in
Josh
love
out
to
there
you
for a little
both.
bit.
And yes, send in Dr. Josh. Not only love, but there is this book called The Atheist Handbook, Atheist to the Old Testament, Atheist Handbook, and it's only one volume in, and if you go and ask him, he will tell you volume 2 is in the works, baby.
And 3.
Hopefully it's a trilogy.
And 3.
And 3.
And 3. It has to be a proper trilogy, right? It has to be.
Dum, dum,
Plus,
dum.
anytime
Dun,
you
dun, dun.
call a book with Amy a handbook, you've already won her over.
That's right, baby.
You
And
won
on
Amy
that
over.
note, all right, Cerberus. Pronunciation is definitely my strong suit on this episode. I want to send hearts to you. We have been talking about the ontological argument for the existence of God. This is your opening and closing statement. Close us out for the night.
and done.
What are your thoughts?
My thoughts are, and I just wanted to say this because no one ever says it for some reason, or no one ever brings it up.
No.
All ontological arguments for God are self-refuting because they either assume a container that is more great than God, that they require God to be maximally great, or they assume, like Descartes has to assume a world that has all perfections and everything else, which would make a container greater than God's perfections. And then Plantinga's like seventh premise does the exact same thing. It even outright states, except for he calls it a possibility. So it outright states that there's a possibility that God is contained in, which then has to be greater than God. And that's all.
That's true. God would just be a
Yeah,
physical
it's all-
property of whatever he existed in or whatever. Be a slave for that.
Maybe God is just a brain in a vat. But okay, thank you so
Both
very
membrane.
much, Cephas. And all right, then we are transitioning to the end. Send in love and
Can you work that word in any more, Amy?
working that word.
Transition
Look,
to
sometimes I have to
transition, then
transition to a transition so I can transition.
Yeah, you know.
But we have been looking for calling me skeptical. We got 2 theists and a bunch of our skeptic, non-believing brothers out there. James, we have been calling me skeptical in the ontological argument for the existence of God. It's been causing trouble, I think, in debate circles, and for no reason at all, because once you go into it, it is
Put it to bed.
fluff. Put it to bed. But what are your final thoughts?
Well, I just want to thank everybody for coming on and talking with us about it. It's a great conversation. And ontological argument. Put it to bed. It's no good. Like even Cerberus came in. There's internal contradictions. It doesn't work. It's really only something you would latch onto if you were just absolutely desperate to find any reason to believe. You might find this persuasive, but otherwise, no.
But otherwise, yeah. And all right, I hope you all had a fun time on this episode of Call Me Skeptical, Ontological Argument for God. Where tonight we looked at a philosophical argument for a priori knowledge. I want to thank my co-host James W., along with our guests, Bubbles, Jason, Luca, Oz, Pseudonym, and Severus Hex, along with our awesome mods who make this stream so great, the people
you,
in
guys.
chat, and all of our lovely viewers like you who make this channel even possible. If you enjoyed the show, please like, follow, or subscribe. Then hit that bell icon so you can join our live streams. Or hey, once the video's done, leave a comment. That's right, baby. After the show, we will be heading over to the Skeptic and Ranting Discord server, the link of which is in the description below. Lastly, that's right, baby. And lastly, if you'd like to help us make even more fun content, even more shenanigans, we offer unique perks for your support at patreon.com/Amy Newman. I am Amy Newman, and we will see you all on the next episode of Skeptic Ball Z. Puppy.
Look at
Night,
your eyes.
everyone.
His eyes are all glowing.